Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. This is now episode 488, and we are recording this before Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We are joined by Carson from NerdSesh. Fellas, how are we doing? Carson, how are you feeling? Do you think the Pacers close it out tonight?
I would say pretty confidently the Pacers close it out tonight. I think that they're going to make some adjustments. I think they'll be much better prepared for the ball pressure and the aggressive coverages we saw against Hallie in Game 5, some blitzing. I think they'll be better spaced around him. They'll play better off 4-on-3s. They'll shoot better. And I think that they'll meet the Knicks at their energy level where they were just kind of getting worked in Game 5 to every 50-50 ball. So I do think Indiana's a better team. I think they respond tonight. But I'm thrilled to be here, man. You guys, some of my favorite people. And Dells, and it's great to be here. I'm very happy as always to be on the show.
Type shit. Gentlemen, and Carson. I hope you guys had a great day. Carson, I would love for you to run that back, but now this time, if the Knicks win, what would be your little, monologue there?
If the Knicks win, I would say that probably means that the defensive coverage was still pretty effective. I think that would mean that they were able to take Hallie out of rhythm and guys around him kind of struggled similarly to what we saw last game. And then I think Brunson and Cat go crazy offensively. That's kind of always the formula. They need one or both of those guys to go crazy to win.
One thing I know for a fact, Jalen Brunson never played as bad as Haliburton in Game 5. That's the one thing I know for a firm fact.
Jalen Brunson in Game 3 was absolutely worse than Hallie last game. Brunson was bad offensively while being the worst defensive player on the floor. True. In games 1 and 2.
I genuinely love more than anything is after a great team win and an unbelievable Haliburton performance, because let's not undersell it. It was amazing. In my opinion, the best performance of the playoffs so far. It was perfect. A perfect triple-double. Amazing. I love how people love to jump to the conclusion that the entire season, the entire playoffs, crumble it up, piece of paper, trash can, does not matter because Brunson, who has been far better, has been acknowledged as the better player after one performance, which, again, amazing. Let's not undersell it. It was fantastic. Now he's leapfrogged Jalen Brunson. Interesting opinions, very fascinating more than anything.
This is coming.
And I want to say this, Carson and Dells.
Yeah, it's coming.
You better hope.
What? Hey.
You better hope to the good Lord that the Knicks don't win tonight. You better hope, because I promise you will see me and Joel. You will see the both of us and you will hear us, because that nonsense that you guys were talking about, not just the Knicks, but now Jalen Brunson.
I never said anything about
You don't
want
to see that, which is why I said the two of you, because I acknowledge who do I see to my left? Who do I see to my right? To my left, I see the Knicks hater. To my right, I see the Jalen Brunson hater. So let's just keep that same energy. So you better hope.
Get him.
You better hope the Knicks lose tonight.
Okay, this is ridiculous because this is coming from the dude who this very season was saying flat out LaMelo Ball is significantly better than Hallie. Hallie is a flat out bum. These were the things I was having to argue with you. Now I think November, consensus that Hallie's up. Well, yeah, and he was hurt. And I told you he was hurt. And you said,
injury. We got to give
he was injured. And now he's been playing like a top 15 player for 3/4 of the season.
Shame on me. Yo, Rick,
absolutely shame on you.
We have to be kinder, more generous to the rest of these injured players. Let's just give them an entire season to prove us wrong. I think that's
how
fair.
are you going to try to play this off like he didn't lead the best playoff offense last year, and he hasn't played at a top 15 level for 3/4 of the season since he got healthy and led the Pacers to play at a 60-win pace for 3/4 of the season? You were wrong. There's no spinning special. You were super fucking wrong.
I'll say
24 Hallie was also special.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I'm saying.
All right.
He's been pretty damn good.
Jalen Brunson is great. I think that they are as close as possible.
As you are. As loud as you are on Tyrese Haliburton, I just ask you to be
loud with Brunson.
The reason I'm not as loud about Brunson is because Brunson wasn't voted the most overrated player in the NBA. I didn't have fucking fools telling me LaMelo Ball was better than Brunson.
In November,
Jalen Brunson doesn't need to be defended like that. Brunson is great.
Hey. 2025, he's been excellent. I haven't said a bad thing about Tyrese Haliburton since the year 2025 started because there's nothing to say bad.
I never forget
being
these
said,
things, Drew.
I just want you to be as loud as you are with Tyrese Haliburton with Jalen Brunson. That's all I ask.
I think that they are as close as two basketball players can be. I really do. And I
wow.
World in
either team regular season.
I'll say this.
All the postseason.
All right.
We're close.
Who cares?
We're very close.
Never.
I've always been higher on Hallie than you, Drew. Like, we're just operating from totally different frameworks. You're acting like this is one game.
My brother in Christ.
Yeah, it is. I only had them separated by a few
if you want
spots
to
in
say
the
a
regular
word or
season.
three.
Yes,
go ahead.
I would
I
love
don't
to
think we have anything to say.
I would love to jump in here as the actual Hallie hater here. The guy who's really set the tone here. It's been the Hallie hater. I do think there is a bit of a nice conversation between Haliburton versus Brunson. Listen, Game 5 was the best thing I've ever seen. Hallie was shitting it up. I was over there geeking, like, yeah. But I will say this, though. It's really a preferred play style, man. Do you prefer the dominant isolation scorer that can give you 40 and can score at will at any moment? Or do you prefer the playmaking maestro in Hallie that pushes the pace, that's really efficient, picks his spots? I don't think one is definitively better than the other. I do think regular season-wise, Brunson had a better regular season, because we value the scoring output that he puts out. Plus, the Knicks need it. Like, the Pacers don't need Hallie to score 30 to 28, 27 points a game. The Knicks kind of offense is required for Brunson to do that. Of course, it fits his game style. But it's really a preferred thing. Now, they've given you two different playoff vibes. Hallie's giving you that efficient, maybe not the craziest numbers, but an efficient elite play in terms of just pushing the pace, getting his teammates involved, being extremely clutch. And Brunson's just like, bro, I can get 40, like at will. Like, it doesn't matter who's on the other end. I'm going to get 40. This is my game. So do I think LaMelo was crazy today? Yes, LaMelo was crazy. But I do
in November, it wasn't.
Where Drew's coming from, where it really has been just, if one guy plays better, he's better. If the other guy plays better, now all of a sudden he's better. There isn't no definitive, real consistency with the two. And it's natural. They're playing against each other. They're both dueling against each other. So it's really just a part of the game. I think if we just talk in totality of the series, I really feel like they've been at the same level. I really do feel like they've been giving each other. We could talk about Brunson's defense. Yes, he's a cone. Yeah, bro, he's the smallest dude on the court. Like, it is what it is. He's 6 feet. But what he can do with the ball on offense, man, you just can't get that at 6 feet tall. So for me, being a Hallie hater, I've been praying on his downfall. This shit is not working. It's just not working at all. But I think both of them have been at the same level, man. So you guys arguing. It's funny. And Carson, your eyes, man. Your fucking eyes are beautiful, man.
They're sexy. I get lost in them.
Fellas, I get lost in both your eyes.
That's why I can't look at the screen while I'm talking to him, because then I get all nervous.
I feel the exact same way. Okay, I think that's actually a great take, Rip. I think that's very fair, very reasonable. I would say that Hallie was quite clearly the better player through the first 4 games overall, but then game 5, he was really bad. And Brunson
I can't give you game 1. I can't give you game 1.
No, I'm not saying in each individual game. I'm saying over the first 4 games. And also, here's what I'm going to say. You can't really overstate the Brunson defense issue because his scoring is incredible. He's one of the best playoff scorers, has been for multiple years, one of the most resilient. His ability to dominate like that inside the paint, outside the restricted area, the short mid-range, it's incredible. Nobody can keep him from getting to his spots, and he's special there. But there's a reason that the Knicks in these playoffs are 7 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the court, and it's because their defense is 17 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the court. I pulled these numbers by hand after the first 2 games. When the Pacers brought Brunson into the action in either pick and roll or in isolation, let's get nerdy for a second. They generated more than 1.3 points per possession. That's better than a 130 offensive rating in the half court every time they're bringing him into the action, which they're doing over and over again. So you can do like the defense, no, it is hugely important when you are that bad defensively as a small guard who can be targeted every possession. I think you have to acknowledge that. But fundamentally, I agree with Riv's point. If you want the volume scoring, Brunson is special. If you want the off-ball value, the pushing in transition, and not being such a glaring liability defensively, then I think Hallie's a great choice. They're like the 12th and 13th best players in basketball.
Question, Carson. I want to ask a question because I want to give a counter, not a counter. I really want to ask a question because numbers are extremely important. I don't want to diminish numbers, and those numbers mean a ton to me. But I watched the game, man. And when I watched the game, I have a question for you because I'm sure you watched the game too. When you hear those numbers, obviously, if you just look at those numbers, you think, yes, they're a better team defensively on the floor without Brunson, obviously, because he is a liability. Yes. But do we not take into account, does that not become there has to be a middle ground because they may not be the best defensive team, but without Brunson offensively, it really is just a hope to God somebody else can step up.
I totally agree.
I disagree because I've seen Cat in the moments while Brunson's been on the bench take over the game.
Yes,
I've seen that, and then they go on their runs. Yeah. This series,
but you're comfortable with that. If you're
I think I've watched the best basketball Cat has played in the playoffs.
Go ahead. If we do want to get into the numbers, the on-off stuff, what's been really consistent is they're at their worst when Brunson and Cat are on the floor together.
Yeah, they're both
because their defense is that horrible. When Brunson is out there without Cat, he can carry the offense and the defense is functional. So they're a very good team in these playoffs. When Cat is out there without Brunson, for the most part, he can carry the offense and the defense is functional. So
I agree.
Really it is the two of them being that problematic together defensively. But no, Riv, of course, I don't think the Knicks are actually better without Jalen Brunson. I think Brunson's a top 15 player. I think he's a special offensive talent. I just use those numbers because I do think they're valuable. I think they're important. And especially because I rewatched the entirety of games 1 and 2. I did an intensive breakdown and Brunson was unbelievably bad defensively. It's not unbelievable, unfortunately, because it's him, but to be that much of a weak point really is so detrimental to your team's defense.
I get it. I'm not, you're not wrong there. Brunson ain't been the best defensively.
You have Brunson and Hallie at 12 and 13. I feel like Brunson has put himself in probably closer to top 10 talks after this run.
I mean, 12 to 10 is right there, brother.
Would you have him above LeBron?
I guess not. I don't know.
Would you have him above Ant? Would you have him above KD? Wemby? Those are the names. I always feel like there's 12 top 10 players in the NBA.
If somebody came to you, Carson, was like, yo, I think at this point I'd rather Brunson than Kevin Durant. You're calling them dumb?
I think that's nuts. I think KD is so underrated right now, bro.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but Brunson,
special.
You talk like Brunson isn't one of those guys. He is in that class of guys.
Is there a world in which you think the offensive gap, if you think there is an offensive gap favoring Brunson to begin with, exceeds the defensive gap between him and KD, who is still a legitimately positive defender? I just can't get there. And the offensive versatility and flexibility of play style I get with KD, the hyper efficiency. It's Kevin Durant, man.
I mean, I know we haven't seen the most efficient version of Brunson in this series versus the Pacers, but for the entirety of his Knick career, he's been one of the most efficient playoff scorers for them. The leap that he's taken as a playmaker this season has been definitely visible and has been visible this postseason as well. Do I think that the gap is
as a playmaker? It's been visible this postseason?
For sure.
I'm thinking more regular season. I ain't thinking really.
I'm thinking both because look at the way that Mikal Bridges was able to get involved in that last series versus the Boston Celtics.
He did that without Brunson off the court.
I was going to say he was doing that in the fourth quarter, just hitting pull-up minis.
Making some wacky ass.
No doubt. And then also look at that Pistons series and what he's able to do with the basketball in his hands. Getting OG Anunoby going, getting the ball to Karl Anthony Towns on a consistent basis, going ahead and taking care of mismatches. It's been consistent throughout these playoffs. This series, they've done a great job of. Well, Nesmith, with the help of course, some strong physical defense that he's been playing. I use those words pretty sarcastically because I do think that they're letting him get away with a little bit more than what usually is allowed.
We're not going to give Jalen Brunson's whistle, man. Of all the whistles in these playoffs, Jalen Brunson is not the one to complain about.
I mean, Shea's whistle, Jokic's whistle.
Oh, Jokic.
Jokic gets a ton of calls.
He began his
get a ton of missed calls.
Jokic gets mauled.
He gets destroyed.
And I actually like it. I like that the Thunder were allowed to play that physically with him.
Jokic don't flop though, and he don't foul, B.
He does flop.
Doesn't flop.
He does.
He flops. He flops, but he doesn't foul. He exaggerates the contact when he gets fouled, but he doesn't. I'll be looking at
Jokic actually just be getting hit.
Jokic actually sometimes flops and shouldn't, and it fucks up the offense.
I don't think Jokic's whistle is that good though.
Jokic only ever flops off ball. Jokic never flops on ball. He only ever flops off ball.
That is not true.
That is true. And by the way, I think he flops off ball a lot.
I watched him flop with the ball in his hands and lead to turnovers because they're not whistles, and he's bitching and moaning.
Brunson's definitely in that SGA tier. He's in that.
Of course, but he's also 6 flat.
No, that's a fact. But he be doing some shit. It was one time where he did some shit where he grabbed Nesmith's arm, hit him himself in the face.
That was funny. You didn't laugh?
I did. But I'm like,
Brunson's the worst foul baiter in the league. Brunson's the worst foul baiter in the league.
I can understand why you would take Kevin Durant, just because I still think he's one of the premier scorers in the NBA. And if it's a 1-year basis and you want to just say, okay, for a playoff run, who gives me a better chance, you can maybe go KD. But Brunson's been so unbelievable, he's just so exceptional in the playoffs for the last 3 years that I can't say that if I have Kevin Durant on the Knicks instead of Brunson, we have a better chance. I feel like Jalen Brunson has given us just as good of a chance as anybody in the NBA over the last 3 years in the playoffs. And 3 years ago, when we lost to the Heat in the second round, everybody around him didn't show up. He averaged 31 in that series. So I think that Brunson, while he is a defensive liability, and I think in the 2010s and the 2000s, this was more true than now. You could hide your guards because teams back then didn't use as many guard-to-guard actions. But in this era, you cannot hide a guard. They are too involved in offensive plays. And Indiana has shown that throughout this series that they're going to bring Brunson in every action. It's impossible to hide any defensive liability with how advanced offensive systems are nowadays. So I do think that you have to take that into account in Brunson's evaluation because it is a big negative. And even though Hallie is by no means a great defender, I think in these playoffs, he's been a very good defender. He's made blocks. He's had steals. He shows effort, and he has size at 6'5" with a pretty good wingspan. So he's able to contest better. So I do think that they're in the same tier. And what Riff said is right. It's just a preference of play styles. If you want the scorer who can take over games with his scoring, then you go with Brunson. If you want Hallie, who's more of a connector and makes his teammates better and then isn't going to be a black hole on defense, you could go with him. I think they're in the same tier.
I also think it's a little bit of and I'm using Dell's here because Dell's had made one of the greatest greatest takes, depending on how you look at it. I do think it's a fatigue thing. I do think it's a bit of a fatigue thing.
What's great about that?
Oh no, I said it depends on where you are in the offense.
Okay, all right. I'm glad
if you look at Brunson, this is a guy who milks maybe 15 to 20 seconds of a shot clock, and he has the ball every single possession, nonstop. And Tibbs is constantly playing these guys a shit ton of minutes, as you should. It's the playoffs. You tend to kind of, there's moments where a lot of stars do it, where you take your plays off on defense because you kind of need that energy to go get a bucket, and I think when you look at these small guards, man, you like you mentioned, Joel, you made a good point. You can't hide them. Like, you could try to hide them as much as you can, but there's going to be a moment where, all right, they found you. You got to play some defense. And Brunson has the frame, so you can't really, he has the frame, and he's strong, he's physical. It's just, I really do think it's the fatigue thing where he's just so gassed and tired, and also he's not that good of there because coming out of college, Brunson was a solid defender. And I know this is way far back.
He's just too small.
He's just too small. But a lot of times it'd be just dudes beating him off the dribble. He's letting dudes get past him. He's getting lost on defense in terms of just ball watching. Not everybody could be Steph, man. Just not everybody can be Steph.
Now you're cooking. Now you're really cooking. It is interesting because been defended better in the Boston series, which was more of like the Jays, these bigger, stronger wings actually trying to isolate him. He didn't struggle there as much as he has just like covering guard-on-guard screens like you're talking about, Joel, where if he gets the switch, guards are getting past him, or he does that soft show every time, which is just like such an ineffective coverage, and he's letting up threes off the pop, or you're briefly putting 2 on the ball to compensate for him, and then you're getting a 4-on-3. Like, he's a very problematic.
The Jays would just settle a lot, too. And their offense compared to Indy's, where like they'll just put their head down and try to go straight to the rim. Indy's constantly moving the ball around, so Brunson 100%. Has to constantly.
There's a reason why they got eliminated.
Yo, talk.
Yeah,
Joel.
it is.
It's the reason why the
Knicks won't get a chip either.
You better hope not. No, you better hope not.
Oh my goodness!
You better hope not.
Indiana's offense is crazy though. They're constantly moving.
Yeah, I hope they lose tonight.
I do think, Riv, when you're talking about. I do think that one thing that Hallie gets credit for, but probably still not enough, is just like how effective his play style fundamentally is for team offense. Like, being the best hit-ahead passer, being the best at pushing in transition, that's so big, dude. Transition offense is just so much more efficient than half-court offense. It's so much easier. Nobody gets you out there more than Hallie, and he's just the best decision-maker in basketball. I've honestly never seen somebody who is so good at like maximizing every advantage he creates while also minimizing mistakes, like getting you to the high percentage option over and over again without giving the ball away.
It's only crazy. One guy, man. It's only
Carson,
one other guy.
I'm going to be honest with you. One thing you said that has stuck with me every single time I watch Indiana and Haliburton, and it's a fact. The fact that, let's say out of 10 possessions, 9 of them, you're at minimum getting a shot attempt.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crazy to think about, truthfully.
A good one, too.
Like, at minimum, you're getting an attempt to score the basketball and not leading to the defense getting out in transition and getting an easy bucket. No, at minimum, we're getting a shot up. That really, no trolling, no jokes. That genuinely is why you have to respect and appreciate what Haliburton brings to an offense. And I agree with it. It's true.
It's been a story of the playoffs, man. The two teams that are at least in position to make the finals, OKC's already done it, are the teams that have dominated the turnover battle and the teams that have dominated the transition battle. Like OKC and the Pacers have been head and shoulders above everybody else in both those categories, and it's a big deal.
He's like the Joe Burrow of the NBA, where he just is making quick decisions.
What the fuck?
No, it's the
Burrow's
Bo
so
Nix.
much better.
It's Bo Nix.
Can we find a better name?
Whoa. No, he is not the Bo Nix of anything, bro.
Making the smart play, that sounds Tyrese Haliburton-esque.
No, you're talking about a system merchant in Bo Nix.
Oh, no, it's funny because I watched Haliburton get hurt, and last year Nemhard
Oh,
and
that's
TJ
funny.
McConnell executed the system
Nemhard's
pretty
a
well.
playoff
You're
got
talking
swept.
about the 2 games that they still lost, and you're
All
talking
right,
about
they lost
guy
the 2 games with
whose team has
Haliburton.
been
So it
13
didn't
points
really
per
matter,
possession
pal.
better with him
They
on the
lost
court this
either
year.
way.
Their offense is 8 points per 100 possession better with him on the court. He's a
All right,
hugely
you
impactful
nerd.
offensive
Who
player.
cares?
He's a
I'm telling you facts. I'm
Who
telling you facts.
cares?
The comp makes perfect sense.
Facts,
Burrow
They got swept.
has one of the
I like the
quickest.
Burrow. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the Burrow
He
comp.
has,
talk about him.
he
Burrow.
has
Yeah.
one of
Yeah,
the
let's do it.
quickest
Let's talk about
times to throw in the NFL. He makes quick decisions. He's
Lamar
always a
Chase.
step ahead. And that's Haliburton. Haliburton makes passes very quickly, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for getting the ball out of his hands that quickly. The ball doesn't stick with him. As soon as he sees something open, a slither of space, the ball is already out of his hands, and that's why they're so functional offensively.
Maybe
Last
a little more
year-
Tua than Burrow, in my opinion. Probably a little more Tua than Burrow in him.
I can respect a little Tua.
All right, let's stop with these cross-sport comparisons.
Yeah.
These don't
Oh
work.
my
These
God,
are not
yo,
doing
Carson,
it for me.
Burrow,
what's
you're
good
losing me.
enough?
Burrow's a
What's
top 5
good
quarterback.
enough?
They're,
Tyrese Haliburton ain't no fucking Joe Burrow. I can tell you that right the fuck now.
This is what I'm saying. Let's just stop. He's not Joe Burrow. He's certainly not fucking
It's
Tua or
Tua.
Bo
He
Nix,
cooks.
though.
Yeah,
It's
we
the
have to
difference
find the
player,
middle
that
ground.
11
There has to be a
15
middle ground
range
here.
Player. That's Tua. That's Tyrese Haliburton.
but Haliburton's won multiple
Comp.
playoff series.
Good comp.
Tua
Well,
hasn't won a
no,
playoff
it's a
game.
team game. Football's 22 guys.
Carson, what do you think about
Tua's
the?
played well. Tua's played well in the big games. His teams let him down. I want to be clear.
He stinks.
6 touchdowns, 2 INTs. We can't forget that game happened.
Oh, Christ.
So Carson, do you think he's the Brock Purdy of the NBA?
Dude, I'm done with this. I'm not doing these cross-sport
Carson,
comparisons. I think it's
you
too
have
different, man.
fun?
It's
Yo,
too
Carson,
different.
I thought you were pro fun. I didn't know you were the fun
I am pro
police.
fun. I am
You're
pro
the
fun,
fun
but I
police.
think it's
Take it
too
away.
different to make an apt comparison. Buddy, you want me to put you in cuffs? I'll put you in cuffs and we'll have
Right,
ourselves a
I'm glad you
night.
picked that
But
up.
that's for after the
I'm glad you
show.
picked that up, baby. Mwah.
I just think like in football, when you have the guy who's confined
That
to
was
being a pocket passer, right, who has to make decisions quickly and get the ball out quickly, that's a limitation. Whereas Hallie's ability to always make the right decision to push with pace is so hugely advantageous for an offense every possession. And
Advantageous. That's a word.
you like that?
I did.
That's yeah, that's in the bag.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
go
Rick
calm
gets
down.
impressed way too easily.
I like
way
the
too
numbers.
easily.
I like the number stats more than I like advantageous. All right, Rip. You
I've never
started
heard.
me.
Hey, I've never heard that on this podcast. I'll tell you that. That was
You guys have never pulled that out.
That's
Not in your
not
bag,
saying
Drew.
much.
That's not in your bag.
You know what? You know what? Let me shut the hell up. Let me shut the
That's a
hell
word, man. I liked it.
Yeah, I think
Thank you, Rip.
3 of the last 4 seasons when Hallie's been on the Pacers, their offense has been better with him on the court. And even last year, the offense was better, but even when he was off the court, they were still great. They had a great offensive rating. But over the last 3 seasons, 3 of the last 4, their offense has been terrible when he's been off. And when he's been on, it's been elite. So I don't think it's just the system making him what he is. I think he's maximizing it to the best of his ability. But with that being said, Game 6 tonight, we'll see who wins, Pacers or Knicks. If the Knicks force a Game 7 and you're interested in watching a closeout game in person, there's only one place to go, and that's SeatGeek. Right now is the best time to go to a sporting event. The summer is here. It's always nice outside, and there is a plethora of sports going on. We got the MLB. We got the NBA conference finals going on. We have the WNBA going
Liberty
on.
undefeated right now.
Is there anything that you guys are excited to go to?
I mean, dude, I'm excited in WNBA
gotta
right
hit
now. I'm
Barclays.
excited on Liberty. Like they have Breonna Stewart,
Legend.
they have Sabrina, literally the
Goat.
Kevin Durant and Steph of their team. They just played the Fever the other day. That
It was
game
a
was
banger.
a classic. I think this year for WNBA, it's going to be a great year. Liberty are going to repeat. Those are games I want to go see.
And Dels, you know we got to go out to the Subway Series. We got to go see
Absolutely.
the Yankees go up against the New
You
York
guys want
Mets so
that.
we can go ahead and handle business.
But we're gonna see it again, and
But
this
in
time
Citi Field.
we're seeing it in City Field. That's where you really want to go see a game. Really.
Right.
And hopefully Juan Soto's a little bit better if we go see him in person.
I hope so.
right?
Bring him some good juju, man. He needs it.
Get him out of his little bit of a slump.
Can't
because
be
the other
worse than
day,
he is right now.
He didn't hit the ball. He didn't
1
even
for
try to
11.
bat. I mean, what are we
Hey,
doing?
yo.
I mean, and if you guys want to go see one of these sporting events, maybe you're in the area like us in the tri-state area, you guys can go to Citi Field, to Yankee Stadium, to a WNBA game, or maybe you have the money to spend on a Madison Square Garden
MSG.
playoff game.
Ball
If you
out.
do, regardless of situation, you guys can use code PAS10 to get 10% off on SeatGeek. That's code PAS10 for 10% off on SeatGeek. So if you guys want to use SeatGeek, you can, and go to any sporting event that you want to and use code PAS10. Now let's get into the show. We talked a lot about Haliburton and Brunson. We're going to talk about them also later on in the topic that we have. But this first topic has to do with Minnesota and their future and what they plan to do. And Carson, earlier on the show, you made the statement that you think Kevin Durant is underrated at this point. Do you think KD going to Minnesota puts them over the top, or would it ruin their chemistry?
First, Carson, I want you to hear Joel's trade package.
Yeah, let me hear it.
Apparently, Rob Dillingham.
Well, Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark, and who was it? Terrence Shannon.
Julius
untouchable?
Randle.
No, he
Oh,
said Rob is
untouchables.
untouchable and Jalen Clark untouchable.
No, it wasn't that. What happened is we made a video, a pre-recorded video, and they didn't take salaries into account. So
I took salaries into account.
all you need to do to make the Kevin Durant trade happen, you need to trade Julius Randle.
Yep.
You need to trade Naz Reid. Those two go up to 45 million. KD's at 53 million. So
Is this
you
Okay.
assuming that Randall takes his player option or an assignment trade?
Both of them have to.
his player option, that's what the
30
salary
million.
would be. But it could be a sign and trade, and he could get more, and you can
Right.
fill up more of that salary. And then the third piece would be Rob Dillingham. Right now on Fansball on the trade machine, the only trade that works is Naz, Randall, and Rob Dillingham to go get Kevin Durant.
What about DiVincenzo? Isn't his
DiVincenzo,
contract-
it'd be over the top because the Suns are over the second apron. They cannot take on additional salary. And with Randall and Reed, that's 44, 45 million. With DiVincenzo at 11 million, they'd be at like 55, 56 million.
But I don't think that's possible because Nas probably isn't going to take his player option, right?
He's going to decline. He'll
So
get his
decline it.
contract.
What about
Yeah.
there's
He'll
two
probably get
there's
20,
two different so
25.
there's two different outcomes. This one I'm gonna tell you. Naz Reid could opt into his $15 million player option and
He's
then
not doing
sign a four.
Oh.
But here's the thing: there's two different extension qualifications for if he does it. If he doesn't opt into his player option, he gets a 4-year, $87 million extension. That's $21.8 million per year. Or he could opt in to his option and sign a 4-year, $94.2 million, which is $23.5 million annually. So he
He
could get that
gets paid.
security for 5 years down the line
Mhm.
versus the first 4 years. And Randall is 4 years, $194 million extension eligible, which would put him at $48.5 million annually. So these
I
are the
hope nobody
decisions.
gives that.
Yeah.
These are the decisions that Minnesota is faced with. And I said, listen, I'd rather have Randall and Naz Reid included in the deal and not involve Rob Dillingham. To me, I think Rob Dillingham is one of those pieces I don't want to trade. They traded a first-round pick and a first-round pick swap to go get him. They have a glaring point guard issue. Mike Conley is aging. He was terrible in these playoffs. And I think Rob Dillingham could be the solution to their point guard problem the more he develops. And when he played this year, I thought he showed some flashes. So
Mhm.
I don't want to give up on Rob Dillingham just yet. And especially for a year of KD where he's on an expiring deal, giving up Naz and Randall and Rob to make the salary work, I think that's losing an all-star, losing a sixth man of the year, and losing the potential point guard of your future franchise for a player who is going to be on your team for a year or two max. I think that's way too much to give up if you're Minnesota.
Well, I think the presumption would be that they would give KD a short-term extension after this, like probably try to get a 2-3 year deal. And I don't think there's any question that it makes them a significantly better team right now if they get Kevin Durant. Like, I just cannot see this team really pushing the healthy Thunder very hard at all with Julius Randle as their second option. I just think you see how they eat him alive. He can't do any of his mismatch attacking stuff. I can't even get the ball in the post. They're fronting him. They're denying him. Can't dribble on the perimeter against these guys. So he melted down. It's not a surprise. It's not an outlier. Look at what happened to Triple J in this matchup. Like, big forwards who are dependent on attacking mismatches get destroyed by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Even Jalen Brown, right, who's a slightly different archetype, but really does rely on his mismatch attacking. He struggled so much against the Thunder because he couldn't get the ball in the post and he couldn't handle on the perimeter against them. So they're not beating the Thunder with Julius Randle. And I think that Kevin Durant is still phenomenal. I mean, he was like a 27-7-4 on 65% true shooting guy this year, like he is every year. I don't worry about him ruining their chemistry. Like, I don't really think that that's a concern to me. The problems that teams have faced after going all in for KD, in my opinion, have largely been like in the Suns case, they just invested too much when the roster was already declining, and KD wasn't enough to reopen a window because that core had already fallen off with CP3's regression with Ayton kind of falling off. And then you give up Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges and 4 first-round picks. The Nets, unfortunately, they just like couldn't get their big three healthy. So I feel like people often look and they're like, oh, going all in on KD is a mistake. But if you can get him at this price for Minnesota, I think it's absolutely worth it in the short term. The question is just, how much are you prioritizing this window versus the long-term window? Because this is kind of the weird thing about building around Ant, where you've been to back-to-back conference finals, but he's 23. So if you think Rob Dillingham is a really important part of your future, like maybe you just don't want to move off of him. But I'm probably not as convinced of Dillingham as you are, Joel. I do think that point guard is a major problem for them. I think that they do need to figure it out. But I think the idea that Dillingham in the next year or two would be a super impactful player, I think that that's really, really optimistic, considering he wasn't even a rotation guy this year. I think defensively, he's a guy who's really going to get targeted, and offensively talented for sure, but still a lot to put together there. And you already have Gobert on this big contract, and he's 33 years old. So I would probably say, let's do what we can to give ourselves the best chance to win in this window. And like, there's an argument that, okay, even with KD, you're still not going to be favored over the Thunder, because I don't think they would be. And then it's like, is that worth it? Or should we try to like wait it out? I just don't think you're waiting the Thunder out. Like, the Thunder are this great now, and they're probably just going to keep getting better. So I would say, since you're already in on this core, why not go a little more all in? And it's Kevin Durant, man. It's Kevin Durant. Having Kevin Durant on your basketball team compared to even Randall and Nas is a significant difference in terms of the sort of top end talent that you need to have a chance against the Thunder.
I think it's too big of a risk, and the salary is a big reason for that. Any KD extension, he's going to be getting $50 million plus per year. You're paying Ant, you're paying Rudy, you're paying Jaden, you're paying then KD $50 million per year. That's going to put them pretty damn close to the second apron. And all these young guys that are already on their team that I think could step up. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. will do a great job filling in Nickeil Alexander-Walker's shoes next year. I like Jalen Clark a lot. Rob Dillingham would be in this package in this scenario. Who's their backup five? They're not going to have a backup big at this point. And I just think that in the era where we've seen teams that have the most depth succeed, Minnesota, a team that would be trading 3 valuable players, one that wasn't in the rotation this year, but I think is valuable for the future. And on top of that, not having ownership of 6 of their 7 first-round picks in the next 7 years, it just straps what this team can be. I like more short-term moves that can improve the margins. I think right now their biggest glaring hole is the point guard position. You need more from that. And the Celtics in a rebuilding year, maybe you ask and you gauge the price point of Derek White. What can Derek White do on this team? I think those are the type of moves that I'd be searching for if I'm Minnesota, instead of going big star hunting. And it's not Kevin Durant's fault that he's so good that you have to trade a lot to get him. But in the process of doing so, it hampers your roster a lot. And, maybe Ant, KD, Jaden, and Gobert are enough to go through the West. But I also think that them making back-to-back conference finals put them in a position where they might feel pressure to make a move that they don't actually need to make, because this year was supposed to be a transition year. This year was supposed to be a year where we're going to get ahead of the second apron. We're going to maintain our financial flexibility for the future and build around this Ant window. And this year they have the 17th overall pick, and they could draft maybe another backup big to maybe replace Nas Reed. But I think right now the priority for them is you got to bring back Randall, you got to bring back Nas Reed, just so they give you some trade leverage to use in some signing trades that you could have available to you. But I think Minnesota going all in on this core right now, they lost in 5 both times in the conference finals. I don't think they are as close as they may think they are.
Yeah, I think talking about the Boston package, you have a better chance getting Drew Holiday than Derek White. If you want to go and get Derek White, it's not going to be a Kevin Durant package, but Boston's probably going to have to be blown away to be able to move off him right now, right? Like, you're not giving up Randall and Nas and Clark and maybe Dillingham, but you're definitely giving up Nas Reed, and you're giving up at least one more other valuable piece for Boston. They're not just going to be moving off Derek White because Tatum's out for a year. They still look at him as really part of this core. The Dillingham piece, at least for you, Joel, kind of holding this up is interesting, because to me, Minnesota, even in the long term and of course the short term, is still going to be a defensive minded team. If you have, of course, Gobert, maybe not long term, but you have Jaden, you have Ant Edwards, and we just talked in depth about Jalen Brunson and his defensive deficiencies. Rob Dillingham is going to be worse. I mean, Rob Dillingham is nowhere nearly as strong as Jalen Brunson. He does not have the weight that Jalen Brunson has right now. And if you think he's going to be the point guard of your future, that's great. Is he going to be the point guard that's closing out these game 5, 6, and 7s in the Western Conference Finals in the second round of the playoffs? Maybe he can get there. But from what we've seen so far, I don't know if you could count on that. So Dillingham, while he might have the potential to be your future point guard, and you love what he could bring offensively as someone who's super quick, super agile, he could take anyone off the dribble, he could find his shot. I think all of that is a super, super plus. You also have a bit of a unknown in Dillingham too, that the trade value is still there, that you did move, multiple first round picks to get him last year. And we didn't really see any of him this season, that there's still, people around the league and GMs that are going to be wondering what he can be. But we could also see in 2 years from now, what if Rob Dillingham is just Emmanuel Quickley? Like, what if he's Emmanuel Quickley, but a worse defensive version of Emmanuel Quickley? And like, that's not going to be somebody, obviously looking back on like, oh, we could have got Kevin Durant, but instead we held on to this asset that a couple years down the line doesn't end up being what we think he can be in terms of value, what he brings to the team, and potentially in a Kevin Durant package. But I do think you have to make some sort of move if you want to come closer to what we saw against the Thunder. Because, I mean, we saw in a couple of these games, I know game 3 or game 4, was it that OKC just got blown out, by the first half. By the end of the second quarter, you knew that this game was over. But for the majority of the other games, OKC pretty comfortably won the series, right? This was not something we're looking at in this Indy and Knicks series where every game except one came down to the last couple possessions. OKC is clearly the better team right now. And it's probably not fair to compare because OKC is just better than everyone, maybe outside of the Nuggets, who I think that says a lot about Jokic more than just the team itself. But going to get Kevin Durant really gives you a better chance in the short term to be able to compete with them, just because what he brings you offensively and defensively, being able to pair him up with Ant. And I don't think it's going to cause any chemistry issues just because of the way Ant respects Kevin Durant, right? We've seen in the last couple of seasons, we saw in the Olympics how much that that Ant Edwards looks up to Kevin Durant. He looks at him as a big brother more so than, as someone he's competing with, even when we saw in the Sun series last season. So I think chemistry-wise, they would fit perfectly. But if you do give up that package, including Randall, including Reed, including a guy like Rob Dillingham, I mean, your depth isn't completely torn, right? You still, of course, are going to have Mike Conley and Edwards, Shane McDaniels. Now you have Kevin Durant, Rudy Gobert. Can you bring back Nickeil Alexander-Walker? Can you keep Jalen Clark? That's still 7 guys that you feel pretty comfortable about, depending on how you feel about Jalen Clark, that going into next season, maybe you only need to add a couple of guys in this free agency, whether you have exceptions or potential trade exceptions going into the offseason. So if you're able to acquire Kevin Durant and you still have 7 rotation guys you feel pretty damn good about, I think you're in a better spot than a couple of the other teams that Kevin Durant has gone to recently. But like Carson mentioned, like you mentioned, Joel, it does shrink your title window, right? Like it does shrink your window to compete and actually win a championship from, a pretty long stretch right now, since you still have some flexibility after you moved off Karl Anthony Towns last season. Randall's expiring, Nas expiring, Reed's expiring. So in a couple of years, you could go into a free agency or an offseason where really anything's on the table. But the biggest issue, as you mentioned as well, Joel, is just those draft picks, right? Like you do not have the luxury of attaching 5 or 6 draft picks and going after a guy like Giannis, for example, in this offseason if someone became available 2-3 years down the line. That's the only thing that's really holding up Minnesota. But again, in 2-3 years from now, you're going to have some more draft picks down the line that get freed up after, most of those picks have been seen from the Rudy trade. So if I was Minnesota, I don't know if I would go all in on this Kevin Durant move. But if it's Randall, it's Naz Reid, and it's Rob Dillingham, that feels like a deal that, okay, I didn't even mention Dante DiVincenzo, that's 8 players now. If it's those 3 guys, I know Dillingham's potential is high, but I do think that's going to bring down just your overall defensive upside where there's times you have 5 guys on the court for Minnesota and none of them are mismatches.
Yeah, but I think that with that, you don't have no bigs. Jalen Clark, Dante, and Terrence Shannon Jr. all play the same position, and then you don't have a backup point guard, and then you don't have a backup center on the roster
If you
either.
could include Dante instead of Naz in the trade, like let's say that Randall wants to do a sign and trade where he's signing a new contract, he's not opting in, so his dollar value goes up, and now you don't need Naz's extra $5 million or whatever compared to Dante. Would you do that if you're moving off Dante instead of Naz, so you're not worried about losing the second center?
And that's what they traded to go. That's what they got back for Cat.
True.
You're still giving up Dillingham though, no? Because why would this? If I'm the Suns, I'm getting Randall and Dante. That's all I get.
No. Yeah. Sorry, I was not taking Dillingham.
I would still try my hardest to keep
Naz for
Dillingham.
Dante.
I would offer the 17th overall pick. I would offer
Why would the
some
Suns
first round
take
picks
that, though?
swap. I would offer Jalen Clark or Terrence Shannon Jr. I would offer
25-year-old?
other things. Terrence Shannon Jr.
Yeah,
I mean, he's an awesome player.
brother. They want Rob. like, they're gonna want Rob.
I mean, he's
want-
but
they want
the
both.
Suns are also in the window where they want to win now with Devin Booker.
They want that, but if we're being like completely realistic about their situation, I don't see a world where Devin Booker, like let's say it does like Devin Booker, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, that Grayson Allen, they still don't have a center. They're still gonna have Bradley Beal on
That's the
roster.
other hurdle in this deal is that with the Suns having Booker and Beal and having Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen, they probably don't want Dante back. They just have too many players that are playing a similar position. They probably would want Naz. They would want to complete their front court. So I think that's the big hurdle in what the Suns are going to ask for. I just think it's very risky because Kevin Durant's still playing at a high level, but next year he could continue that and then it could fall off. We don't know. He's at the age right now where his performance year to year is going to swing, and also the injury stuff with him.
Are we? Because like you can say that this dude came off a torn Achilles and in the last 5 years has still been automatic 27, 28 on elite efficiency. Like he's an exception in the fact that he can shoot 55% from mid-range and 40% from 3, and he's 7 feet tall. Like those are not shots that really become less available with age. We've seen the rim pressure decline. And yeah, he's lost some effectiveness, but he's still a clear top 10 player. So let me ask you this, Joel, because you're saying you're worried about the contract, you're worried about the age with KD. Let's look even a couple years down the line. Would you rather be paying 38-year-old KD $50 million or 32-year-old Julius Randle $48 million?
Just one.
I'd
for
rather
one.
pay KD.
It's just KD. KD's a better player than Julius Randle, but also I think that we can't just measure Julius Randle by the OKC series because that's an all-time defense, and
that's the measuring stick. That's what
you
you
have
have
to
to
get
beat.
past.
In the West, you have to get past them. Randle was great in the first 2 rounds, and he was very consistent for Minnesota the entire playoffs. I think Kevin Durant settling for mid-range jump shots against an OKC defense, he might not be the most efficient either. We've seen in the playoffs that KD hasn't.
I disagree. I think actually that's an ideal guy to go against that defense because they can't take those shots away without outright doubling.
We've seen in the playoffs when they played the Timberwolves, they got swept, and Kevin Durant wasn't the best in that series. We've seen that Kevin Durant, the lack of rim pressure at his age in the playoff setting, especially last year, it caught up to him.
Can I just be clear about something real quick though, Joel? When we say that Kevin Durant didn't have his best series, which I absolutely agree, he did not against that Minnesota defense. They were super physical. We're talking about a guy who averaged 27 points per game on 65% true shooting. When we talk about Julius Randle, we're talking about a guy who in game 2 had 6 points on 2 of 11 shooting with 5 turnovers, who in game 4 had 5 points on 1 of 7 shooting with 4 turnovers.
I'm taking Kevin Durant on one leg over Julius Randle.
Like we're talking about holding players to totally different standards.
Kevin
KD's
Durant
ability to produce against any defense is very impressive.
one for one, Kevin Durant is obviously way better than Julius Randle. It's the flexibility you get by keeping those players and having other
But
trade
if you're
options
paying
available
him
to you.
almost as
And
much, like
I will-
Not
saying
and I
without
will say,
flexibility
and I will
he
say
does
that
have
the Kevin
years
Durant,
left
his
as opposed to KD.
efficiency
yeah,
in the Timberwolves series, it was great. There's no doubting that. But it's much like when he was in Golden State, when the Houston Rockets pushed him to 7 back in 2018 in the conference finals. A lot of that is due to we're going to let Kevin Durant play one-on-one. We're going to stay home on all these shooters and let him get those shots. And if you are playing your offense in that way, Kevin Durant's going to get his points. He's going to get his efficiency, but is it going to be conducive to the team's offense if those are the shots that you're allowing? I just don't see it all that much.
We're again holding him to a totally different standard, man. And like that was a poorly constructed Suns offense, and the Timberwolves ate Beal alive in that series. And until game 4, they ate Book alive. KD was the only dude who was consistently producing remotely good offense for them. Julius Randle, we're talking about melting down. So, like, that's the thing. We're not debating the nuances of, where does Kevin Durant rank among the 10 best players? We're saying the difference between him and Randle is massive. And if you're saying you'd rather have the multiple years of flexibility with Randle, I just worry that Julius Randle at 33 is a negative asset. Like, I think that there's a very real possibility teams view him that way. You have another bad postseason outing, and this was a good postseason overall, but a really, really bad final series. And you're paying him $50 million now. You're not paying him $30 million like this contract. You're paying him $50 million. I don't know if that's an asset I want to be attached to long term anyways.
It is Naz Reid that they'd keep as well. And I don't think that could be overlooked because this is my fear with Minnesota right now. I think they're trapped in between two timelines and they might rush a move. If they get Kevin Durant, I think even if they get Kevin Durant in the next 2 years, we view OKC as a team that will be better than them in a playoff setting. Rudy Gobert, a big reason why Naz Reid is so important to their team is because Rudy Gobert at times is just unplayable offensively.
He's also 33.
He still provides an elite defensive floor, and we know what he brings on that end, but he can't catch the ball. He can't finish around the rim. And with KD, with Jaden, with Rudy, with Ant, with an Asian Mike Conley who provided nothing this past playoff run, I just think that you're attaching yourself to 3 players that are aging, that are declining, and I'd rather just go more and lean in more to the youth movement with Minnesota. And I thought that was exactly what they were doing when they traded Cat in the first place. And if that's the plan, which I think that was the plan to begin with, I would just stick with it. Now, if I can keep really Rob Dillingham this is where it becomes more of a feasible trade idea to me, because I do think Rob Dillingham is the answer to their point guard problems. I think even with the defensive liabilities, his ability to dribble drive, his ability to penetrate the defense, his ability to shoot 40% from 3, which he shot 44% from 3 in college, I think that he'll be able to provide an offensive spark that the team needs. Mike Conley had
12 attempts this year.
Mike Conley averaged 6 points and 3 assists in 24 minutes, and Rob Dillingham in a rotation when he played minutes, he averaged 9 points and 4 assists. And Terrence Shannon Jr. Whenever he played 20 minutes or more for Minnesota, he averaged 15. So I think, I would lean into the youth movement. They have guys that fit Ant's timeline that they could grow with. And the best thing might be to wait out OKC second apron. That might be the best thing.
That's a while away. Because they're not getting the second apron until like the second extensions from J-Dub and Chet.
Waiting out and
SGA.
There's a lot that you said. There's a few things I want to unpack. First of all, Rudy Gobert's age. Elite defender, like you mentioned. He's 33, will be 34. We don't know how long he's going to be able to keep up that amount of defensive, because the defense is crazy. We know it is. Offense is literally the opposite of defense. We don't know how long he's going to be able to keep up that level of play. And Rudy Gobert is like their anchor. He's the guy that puts their defense together. He is that important for this team. And like we mentioned, Minnesota built their backs off the defensive identity. That's who they are. They're a physical, defensive-minded team, and Rudy Gobert is at the head of that ship. Then you mentioned Kevin Durant, another guy who hasn't had the best track record in the playoffs as of lately, but regular season can still give you a lot of juice as a top 10, top 12 player, wherever you have him ranked. Defensively is still a positive guy and probably will play a lot better in a Minnesota system with Rudy Gobert, Jaden, and Ant. It's probably going to look so much better as opposed to being the number one defender in Phoenix, where he's obviously not that. A third thing, we mentioned youth movement. And I think when we talk about youth movement, we have to scale that out a bit because we keep just mentioning OKC. And I think that's important. But there's like, what if Minnesota doesn't make a move? Houston makes a move, a big move. Now you have them jumping ship, and they're also another team that can jump in this conversation because I trust in their youth movement more than Minnesota's outside of Ant-Man. Obviously, Minnesota has the best youth player out of both teams by far. But if we're looking at from 2 to like 5, 6, most of them are probably the Rockets players. You know, and this is another team that has the draft capital, has the young assets to make a move for maybe even a Kevin Durant or a Devin Booker or a Giannis, however they want to slice up. So this is another team that could jump in the race. And then Minnesota's sitting there. They don't have the draft capital. They could wait and they could worry about this youth movement, but then you have another team jump you. And then, like, you know, there's still other teams that can make moves around the margin, like Denver and Lakers and stuff like that. I feel like waiting can be tricky because you can wait, do nothing, bring your team back and fumble the bag, or you can make a drastic, quick, hasty move, then fumble the bag. It really is a gift and a curse. And I think Minnesota making the conference finals back-to-back has put them in a weird position because last year, you know, they beat Denver for sure. Game 7, Denver was up 20. We thinking it's over, and then Denver ends up choking that game. This year, they go out there, they dominate the Lakers. They beat a Warriors team with no Steph. Now they're sitting in the conference finals again. As another year, and this was a year where they were supposed to be not a bad team, but they weren't supposed to be in conference finals, and now they're in there again. So now you're like, all right. And this is another thing, like back-to-back conference finals. Do we think Ant just wants to sit there and wait on a youth movement? Like, this is a guy that has kind of tasted that vibe of like, no, we've got to the conference finals back-to-back years. I want to make the finals. I have an Olympic gold medal. Like, I'm being talked about as the face of the league. I'm one of the best players in the league. I keep improving my game. Do I want to sit here and wait for Rob Dillingham, who reminds me a lot of Brandon Jennings and Darius Garland? Darius Garland didn't become good until his third year. So does he want to wait on that? That's another thing that it's just so much going into it. I think Kevin Durant making that move, you probably should think about it. It's going to be a lot on the table. If it doesn't cost you too much, you do it. But right now you're sitting with Minnesota. You have a lot of young talent. You're probably going to bring back Naz Reid. You have the 17th pick in the draft. You can bring in another guy, hopefully another point guard. Mike Conley's probably going to retire eventually, so that gives you a little bit of money back anyways. But if you don't make the move for Kevin Durant, and then Kevin Durant goes to another team in the West, then you're sitting there like, damn, we might have not made that move, and now another team might, you know, trump us.
I don't think any team in the West that can make a move, their first choice is Kevin Durant. I think the Rockets' first choice is Giannis. And if they make the move for Giannis, I mean, there's nothing that you could really say. Like, I think that with Minnesota, I just don't want them to make the wrong move. And I think that if I'm pairing Ant with another star, I want a star that can be there 4 to 5 years from now. That's what I'm saying. And all the assets that I'm trading to get this player, I'm still going to get the returns of that 4 to 5 years down the line. And I just think that with Kevin Durant, the future is just very uncertain with him. But we talked about this from like what'd you say?
I was just saying, is that available this offseason?
Especially for a team like Minnesota?
Is there a star that you can get, or someone not on Ant's caliber, but maybe a tier or two below?
I've heard about the Darius Garland rumors floating around for Minnesota.
Yeah, that would be a great. That
who
would
the
be
hell are you sending back? Who are you sending?
But yeah.
Well, I don't know, but that's been somebody that's been rumored to them.
Yeah.
I guess Minnesota fans are looking for a point guard, and you know they would welcome
Would you
Darius
do a Jaden
Garland.
for Garland swap?
No, I'm good.
Joel. Minnesota.
Oh, if you're Minnesota, like Jaden for Garland straight up.
Well, I mean, there'd probably be some pieces thrown in there a little bit, but
Garland makes more than Jaden.
Yeah, you'd have to get.
It really depends. I don't know. I think Jaden McDaniels, I think, is 2 back-to-back conference finals where he's improving. He's been shown up by Luka and Shea, and those are 2 great generational scorers. There's nothing you can really do, but I think his best defensive role might be to be more of a roamer and to get like a real point of attack defender, I think that could be something that Minnesota could explore.
Makes you wonder.
I can't have that
who's
statement
Jaden?
be
Makes you
sound
wonder, guys.
if
Makes you wonder.
SGA and
Roman
Luka are
wing?
the two
I
guys
agree.
that are killing you.
I
if
agree,
those
Drew.
are the two guys that are killing you. I'm sorry, with all due respect, Jaden,
It
you can
happens.
only do so much.
It happens.
It's just more.
Get a little stronger.
It's more pieces on the chessboard because when Jaden is not primarily on the ball, that means he can help on the gaps. And with his size, he could be more effective in those type of matchups if you have a point of attack defender that
But
is
if
better than
Jaden
him.
can go out there and lock up literally, let me not say everybody else. Almost everybody else can really limit the opposing team's best player, not named SGA and Luka
Hey,
Doncic.
they're in the West.
Couldn't guard Tatum either.
Genuinely, I'm okay with that.
Can't guard Steph
You
either.
do what you can against the two best offensive players in the West, not named Jokic, of course, and you try your best. And at least on offense, what we've seen from him recently is a slow progression, which, hey, it's at least a progression. We're starting to see him be a more assertive in moments throughout.
We've seen Jaden put Booker in a box.
There you go. Thank you. But basically, what I'm
hard.
saying is offensive, we're seeing him grow. And that's all you can ask for from that side of things, because you understand his defense is still elite. You
It's
can't
about
stop SJ and Luka. Okay.
it's
I'll give
about
you a
having
pass for
chess
that.
pieces though, because Jaden in those matchups, I mean, against Shea, he's getting into foul trouble.
Yeah,
So it's better if
Well,
you have him in
they
certain matchups.
They have another elite point of attack defender who they play with him in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think that Jaden already
better than Jaden, honestly.
Yeah, I think
And that's why
Nikhil,
Nikhil, when he's on the floor, he takes on that matchup. He takes on that assignment. And he
Yeah.
might be gone this offseason.
I
And he doesn't
agree.
start.
Your
Mike
cousin's
Conley starts.
Oh shit! I don't know
You
that.
didn't know that, Dels?
Come on.
Yeah, they're
They said it
cousins.
they said it 30,000 times in
Oh, my
every single
fault, bro.
broadcast.
So the question I was going to ask you guys is that for Minnesota, we're talking a lot about them, like if they do it and stuff. If you're the Suns, is Randall, Reed, and Dillingham enough to get KD, or are you also
No.
asking for the 17th overall pick?
Wait,
depends.
Randall and Reed? I get Reed. That
and
moves me.
Dillingham.
It depends. It depends on what else everybody else is offering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
we
what
are-
I'm really interested in with KD, because I feel like everybody thinks like, okay, he's 36, it's a 1-year rental, then we have to pay him. Like, we're gonna get him at a very discounted price. But I wonder, like, are there enough teams who are interested enough in that idea of like, okay, we're gonna get a top 10 player KD for cheap, that there are so many interested parties that like that starts to drive the value up, and it actually kind of does turn into a bidding war? I don't know. I think it really depends on like how many other teams are interested. I don't think that's a bad offer, though. I wouldn't be surprised if that offer got it done for KD, considering all the circumstances.
Like, if you're the Suns, do you want the 17th overall pick attached to that?
Yes.
Well, of course I want it, but
When-
Is it a deal breaker if it's not in there? Like, would you
Yes.
still accept the Dillingham, Reed, and Randall deal?
Yeah,
I wanna
Presented
have to
as
give-
is.
I don't want to give Randall $200 million.
if I'm
I don't
Phoenix,
either, but the
uh,
Suns are dumb as fuck, so they probably will.
I agree, but if I'm Phoenix, you're sitting there like, who is my young talent? I need that pick. I need somebody to bring in. Like,
But
who is my
Dillingham would
young
be
Dunn.
that.
Ryan Dunn and shit?
Ryan
Also,
Dunn.
the guy, the center.
Also Iguodala,
Yeah, him. Like, who is my young talent? Like, nah, I need that pick.
And they have
I'm
none of
sorry.
their own picks.
Yeah,
They
you
have
need
no-
as many
well,
picks
they
as
traded for
you
some
gotta
draft
milk.
picks.
You gotta milk these picks. Like,
None of their own picks, but they
None
won't
of their own
trade
picks, yeah.
Book, which is the only way for them to get their picks back. So, like, I don't know. This is the Phoenix Suns, man. It's kind of hard to say what they're gonna think in this whole process because they make some pretty bad decisions.
They could just
Let
ride
me
out. with
ask
Kevin
you guys a
Durant.
question. Going off the basis that the Suns do make bad decisions. So we have Minnesota's offer. The Rockets straight up just offer them their one Phoenix Suns pick back. They get their pick back. Do they say yes to that over Minnesota?
Just a 10th overall pick?
No, whatever
Jalen
the
Green?
future one is.
The 2026 one.
Well, it's the 10th overall pick this year as well.
Either which one.
I'll be
Either
honest.
So just one pick or
Not
all
just
of their
10.
picks back?
Nah, Phoenix. If Phoenix,
Let's say both.
yeah, that's what I
let's
said.
say both.
2026, the 10th pick. Phoenix might be like, fuck it, I.
Let's say both. Would you rather both of their picks back or the Minnesota deal?
Both their picks back.
And
I
what?
would take
Well,
my
and
picks
what
and not
players?
pay Julius Randle.
True, because you do have to give some
You
players
can
back.
do this.
I
If
You
think
gotta
I'm-
get
you get
50
it done
You
million.
with
can get
it.
Fred. You can get Fred to
Fred
accept
is
the team
40.
option. Bring Fred. Bring me Fred. I want to lose as many games as possible because if I get my pick back, you have an opportunity to get AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, or Cameron Boozer. You take that chance easily over whatever Minnesota's giving
They
you.
don't got the 2026 pick. The Rockets have
never mind.
2025 and 2027.
Capped. This shit is over.
Nets got 26?
You call Brooklyn.
I don't know who it belongs to, but it's like a whole swap ordeal with that.
We got to find who gets the best offer and be like, yo,
Fucking
D-Book.
Thunder probably have it or something.
The Rockets, didn't the Nets trade the Suns picks to the Rockets for their picks back?
But the Stephian rule, you can't trade your picks in back-to-back years. So you basically can't. You can't trade 2025 and 2026. You can only trade.
You could trade a swap
once every other
You
year.
can do swaps in the alternating years. Yeah.
So 2025
Even if
going
they're
to
not
Houston,
your own.
2026, Washington holds the right to swap.
How the hell did Washington get it?
Washington has the right to swap 2026 first-round pick.
Is that from the
Protected
deal?
for selections 9 for 30 for Phoenix's 2026 first-round pick. Orlando then has the right to swap its 2026 first-round pick for the less favorable of Phoenix pick and the Washington pick if conveyable. So it's a whole swap ordeal, but Washington owns their 2026 pick. 2027 is Houston.
Yeah, Washington's keeping that shit.
And then 2028, it's Brooklyn, the Knicks, or Washington holding rights to swap their pick.
They're fucked.
All right,
2029, it's also Houston. Again, they hold the right to swap. And then in 2030, Washington holds their right to swap first-round picks as well.
Is this the Chris Paul deal?
The Rockets
the real
have
deal.
the Suns
Yeah, that's so
2025
bad.
first, and they have the Suns 27 first. Would you do both of those picks for KD over Minnesota?
No. The 17th overall pick versus the 10th overall pick is not that much of a gap.
I mean,
I'd rather
7
just get
players.
I'd rather just get the 17th overall pick and I'd get Rob Dillingham, Randall, and Reed. That's what I would do.
But you also get the 27 first.
Yeah. But if you're trying to win around Devin Booker, you're not trying to go full on tank mode. Then
Realistically,
no.
are they?
I mean,
Yeah,
They
if-
are
it
dumb.
is.
We also have to go off the basis, like Carson
They keep
said,
saying
are
that.
stupid.
Like at some
I mean,
point,
I
they have to like just give it up, man.
I think if they add, Randall, who is a good player, who
Do
I
they
know,
want Randall?
I
Do
know-
the
I
Phoenix
don't
Suns
want
want
Randall.
Randall?
I know OKC, he was bad, but in the playoffs, he was really great.
Question.
$50 million is not worth Randall. I don't care. OKC
I have a question.
aside.
Let's say Phoenix, because I see where Joel is going with this. So I want to ask him a question. All of you guys can answer. Let's say Phoenix was like, you know what, Minnesota, give us Randall, give us Rob, and whoever the third player was.
Reed,
That makes Phoenix what, the 10th or 9th best team in the West?
maybe.
Because San Antonio is probably going to be a little bit better. You still have all these other teams in the West.
Brave, you're forgetting something. They're
Who?
idiots.
Oh,
You
Yeah.
you have to throw
That's
that
my
in.
point,
So
though,
they don't
like-
think they're the 9th best team. They think they're the 4th best team.
yeah, but that's my point, though. Like, building around Devin Booker at 28 years old, you don't have many avenues to build a great team in the
No.
West right now. Like, if this was
Especially
the
when
East,
you have
anyone
none of
who's
your
saying-
own picks.
if you're in the East, you can convince me. Like, the East is a little different, but the
Oh,
East,
yeah.
even the
They
East
could
has
win.
been
They could
better.
win the East next year.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, in the West, it's like, it's so many good teams. Young team. Portland's still like, Portland could be another
Shit,
team that
Portland's gonna
could be
break
better
out.
than you. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like, I
I
don't
think
know.
I think that the Suns, whether they trade Booker this offseason or next offseason, their value is going to stay pretty much the same.
Is it because D Book? I feel like in the media world, in the basketball, his value it's not getting lower, but he's not getting viewed the same.
I mean, he's still viewed as a star.
If it's another year
Yeah.
of losing and you miss the playoffs, it doesn't take a massive hit. But
Devin
probably
Booker.
a little hit.
Another year of losing, another year of him not being as engaged defensively. He's got to just shoot the ball better from deep. Like, I don't know.
He's a
I
little
think they
hit.
should just rip the Band-Aid off and do it now, bro.
Like last offseason, he's fresh off the Olympics where he played great. He had a
Awesome.
great season. Obviously, they lost to the Timberwolves, but he had a great season last year. He looks a lot different in people's eyes as opposed to this offseason than last offseason. And then if they're going to lose again next year, how is he going to look? They're obviously going to double team him, triple team. He's going to be the only threat. They already don't want him playing point guard full time. They still don't have that over there. So I don't know. It's tricky.
Well, they get Rob Dillingham in the deal with Minnesota.
I get you saying that. I do. Like, I really, truly do.
That's a
But yeah,
potential
get
point
burned.
guard option.
He's gonna get minutes. Yeah, he'll
Rob
probably
that's
Dillingham-
start.
that's not a win now building around 28
Rob Dillingham or Scottie Pippen Jr.?
Scottie Pippen's
Dillingham.
probably better
Right
next
now?
year. Scotty's
Right
better.
now, it's
Rob
Scottie
Dillingham.
Pippen Jr.
Right
For the
now,
long
Scottie
term,
Pippen
who
Jr.
knows?
better.
Yeah, I
Who
just feel
knows?
like
Literally,
you
who knows
also
what Rob's going to be. He
you also
barely played
can't
this year.
give up on Rob Dillingham.
No, you can.
It's not about really
giving up.
giving up.
Yeah, nobody's
You're acting
giving
like
up.
you're acting like he's like the Suns are getting trash by
Nah,
He's
he's
like we're
getting
trading
him.
for a
If
second round pick.
we're calling a
It's Kevin
spade, he was a top 10 pick in one of the more weaker draft class of the last like 5-6 years.
and arguably a reach getting picked at 8. Like I didn't think he was going to go quite that high. And also for
And they
Minnesota
traded
to
up for
move
him.
the draft capital they did to trade up. Like they definitely believed in him as a prospect. I just think Kevin Durant is a real needle mover in the short-term window. But even then, it's like Minnesota obviously wouldn't be perfect. Like, and you would still wonder about the lack of a true high-end playmaker in that offense, the lack of a true point guard, like even just a good point guard, because Conley has fallen off so hard. They still wouldn't be better than OKC, and maybe they would just rather say, okay, let's be the second to third best team and maintain some more of our long-term flexibility, even though I think paying Randall that much is still not ideal. But then, like Riv said, like the frustration is, okay, what if somebody else gets KD? What if Giannis comes to the West? And now you're getting leapfrogged by people. That's when I think it becomes a problem, and maybe you wish that you had been more aggressive.
I think the bigger problem with their team right now is just the Rudy Gobert future stuff.
Facts. What if he just rapidly declines?
Well, he's already declined as much as you can on offense.
Well, he's
There's
awful.
not
He's
giving
awful.
you
I mean,
virtually
he's
anything.
horrendous.
What if
From
his,
bad to
if his
terrible?
defense declines? They're fucked.
He's not
Definitely
playing
would
well.
rather that guy over there in OKC over
Like
him.
I
for
would
sure.
rather search for Rudy Gobert.
Oh yeah, that
trade
was
avenues
crazy.
And get
Hold on,
picks.
I'm sorry. I just gotta say real
No,
quick.
no,
you guys
Carson,
took
don't
Rudy over
put
Chet,
Carson.
bro. What the
No,
fuck?
no.
Carson,
Talking
no,
about Alex
Talk
Caruso.
about Alex Caruso,
Caruso.
but don't wrap your head around it, please. Don't wrap your head around it. You're gonna get a headache.
Drew
You're
said
gonna get
Caruso
No, but-
over
okay.
Gobert. No one
But
said
the
Chet.
other day, no. But the other day, I was watching one of your guys' videos, and you had Rudy
Oh.
ranked over Chet in these playoffs. Yeah, because I love you guys. And then for a moment, I was like, fellas, what
you
the hell?
deserve to get
Who
fucked.
said that?
My 10
Oh,
was
Rudy's
Chet.
like a top 10.
Who said
You guys came
Gobert-
to an agreement.
They
When?
were swaying me with
No,
the
we
Rudy
had
stuff.
Chet above him, did we not?
Was
I
I
had
not
Chet
there?
above him. My original
I
list
was
was
not
Chet.
there.
Yeah.
I watched the video.
Was
I
I
don't
there,
remember.
Carson?
Nah, you
I
wasn't
thought
there.
you were.
Drew.
Maybe you weren't there.
wasn't
Maybe you
for that,
weren't
Drew.
there.
Yo,
They
don't
also
take those
had
videos.
Randall at
Lord
4.
fucking knows I wouldn't have no Rudy Gobert there.
I think that was when that had to be like you must have saw that video, but we must have made it like a minute ago because we had Randall high.
And now Randall
Randall
was
was
four,
hard.
Before
and
the
now
OKC
he's trash.
series.
Yeah,
Now
That was
he's
definitely like, yeah.
Whoa.
For the OKC.
Don't
Either
take
way,
us too
and
serious.
ever putting Rudy Gobert over my glorious Chet Holmgren is insanity.
You look like
That's
Chet.
Yeah,
all
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
Chet after the second round, Rudy
I look
after
like
the second
Chet?
round, it was
No,
definitely
Dales
closer.
looks like Chet, man.
Oh.
You look more like
What wasn't closer?
Reed
Chet
Shepard.
cleared.
Steve Novak. No.
Chet cleared after
I'll
the
take it.
second round.
fact.
Chet has cleared all year by a
Hold
lot.
on, let me pull up a
Chet
picture of
It's just
Concanipple.
better. Chet's just better.
Conkin nipple.
Concanipple is good, man.
It's another guy, man. Solid player. Really good player. I like him.
So on to the next topic.
No, you don't look like him, Carson. That's disrespectful. You're way more handsome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Carson, you
What?
look like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Ooh, thank you, man.
Fuck.
That's
What
how-
a minute.
Titanic Leo or old washed up Leo?
No. I'm thinking Wolf
Is
of
there a
Wall
washed
Street.
Leo?
I'll
Wolf
take
of
it.
Wall Street,
He's
Leo.
still
I mean,
handsome.
not as an actor. He's amazing as an actor. He's not quite the heartthrob he
Wolf
was.
is
I watched
ugly now?
Titanic.
The one that
I-
bagged Margaret Robbie. That one right there.
Okay, I'll take it. And with a
That's
smile.
a demon.
You remember those? You remember them clips?
Oh, I remember those scenes, Riff. I've seen the film.
What eliminated playoff teams do you think is under the most pressure this offseason?
Can I be basic
The Lakers.
and say my Los Angeles Lakers?
Oh,
You have Luka Doncic. You got to figure it out. It's that simple. You're under the most pressure. Rob Pelinka is under the most pressure to figure it out and get us past the first round at the absolute minimum. It's already reported that LeBron James is going to accept his player option, which I'm nervous. Does this mean this is the last season
It's about
I get to
time, man.
watch my glorious king? I'm
Fuck.
scared. I'm nervous. I hope that's not the case. But now there's even more pressure on Rob Pelinka. Now you have to deliver in LeBron's final season to at least try and put a contending team forward. You need to go and get a center. You need to go and get a point of attack. There's so many things that we need to go out and do. We need to get some more spacing on the floor. We need a lot on this team. I look at us and think we are under the most pressure because we have the GOAT retiring and arguably the best point guard in basketball
What?
who had something to prove this upcoming season.
There's no argument.
No, let's
SG
not
is
make that
better.
argument.
But I'll say this. I want,
Now, how quickly we fall. One season of basketball, man. I really
it's
love
been
the
multiple
game.
for me.
It's beautiful.
we're
Been
a
here.
recency biased podcast, Drew. You know this. Like,
Not
you know-
me.
You know this.
Never a day in my life have I ever been biased on this show.
You took
Alex
Tatum
Caruso.
over Luca.
Alex
Flip that.
Caruso.
Alex Caruso.
Alex Caruso. I want to take a
Wait,
different.
who did I
approach
take
here.
over him?
Tatum.
Yeah,
Tatum over
deserved.
who?
You
Luka.
said Reeves over Luca.
When did I
Bias.
say? Wait, I took Tatum over Luka in 2022. Is that what we're saying?
2023.
No, 2022. 2023 was
2023.
my year of forgiving myself for all the wrongs I've said.
You took
No,
Jalen Brown.
2024 was last year. Adding the year.
Yo, you're cooking. That's on me.
Yes. Yes.
2022, Tatum was special. Went to the finals. 2023, Tatum started to lose me because his jump shot was dog shit. Then 2024, his jump shot was extremely dog
You were
shit.
like, I'm
But
done.
I was here on Luka Doncic.
Yes.
Can't forget that because of the jump shot.
So just to be clear, you're saying how quickly we forget when you were the guy who was lowest on Luka a year ago,
This
and
guy-
then he played way
Luka
worse
was my
this year.
MVP.
He was.
But you had Tatum over him.
No.
Yeah, I don't know where-
Oh, you
More
had
so,
Luka over
more
Tatum.
well,
Okay,
it's
I misunderstood.
Carson. It's
This
a
guy
year and a
tried to
half
clip me
ago.
from 2 years ago. That's
It's a-
insane.
Well, it's not. It's the start last season. The start of last season, you had Tatum over Luka.
As he should have been.
Yeah.
Carson,
Fuck are we
you know
doing?
what it sounds
How
like,
have you
Carson?
gotten higher on Luka in that
Whoa,
time?
his
Would be my
3-point
question.
shot. His
Because he
3-point
became a
shot in
Los Angeles
2024
Laker.
was sex.
Yeah, cooked out. Fucking
Last year, last
Yeah.
year was the best Luka player.
100%. His three ball last year was unbelievable. He was shooting like almost 10 threes a game.
Carson,
38% for sure.
The
He's a
people who
fucking
really
genius.
watch Luka know
And
that
Tatum's jump shot is
Joel was
best-
about to say
the-
some bullshit.
the best
No, he's
version
not.
of
He's
Luka
about to
was
Oh, here we go.
2022,
Here we
2023.
go. There we
the
go.
best Luka, you saying?
The best
Skinny
Luka
Luka.
individually.
I mean,
was-
Luka just went to the finals last year. Like, he was
The
pretty
hard
good.
thing, the
and
hard
that
thing
wasn't his best, and it really
He was
wasn't his
MVP. He
best.
should have won MVP last year.
It's a
Well, the
shame,
hard
man.
thing is,
I would have
I
voted
think
for him.
last year was definitely his best regular season, even though like some of the rim pressure stuff had declined already, just because if Luka shoots 38% from three on 11 threes per
Come on.
game, like, and he was getting to the rim still much more effectively than he was this year when that fell off to another level. Like, I do think that was the best regular season, but last year was definitely not his best postseason.
That was one of his longest though.
The best Luka
It was his
the
longest
Luka,
postseason, but it wasn't his best
the
individual.
Luka they
Oh,
made the
he killed
midseason
Minnesota.
trade for Kyrie that year, which was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, when they were the
That-
10th
yeah.
seed.
That was the best Luka, but their team was terrible.
And
yeah,
he
but
also got hurt, so I don't care.
they tanked. They tanked down the stretch.
They did.
Thank
They missed
you.
the playoffs.
because they had a top 10
Literally
protected
missed
pick.
the playoffs, and I'm supposed to say that that's the best Luka.
Crazy.
To get back on track here, because we're a group of handsome men that tend to fall off the rails a little bit.
We have ADHD.
We
True.
do. Let's lock back in though. Experience. I mean, pressure. Who has the most pressure?
Who has
Is
the
it
most
not the Lakers,
experience
though,
this
Riv? Like,
offseason?
no, being dead serious, is it not the Lakers?
I think I want to take a different approach.
We're gonna go with Cavaliers.
No, I actually want to say the Rockets. I want to say the Rockets.
Interesting.
And I want to explain why I say the Rockets, because they may not have the most pressure,
They might have the least pressure.
but they have a different type of pressure because you watched OKC make the finals. You have, these young teams coming up in the world. Indiana's a relatively young, actually, really, I would say Indiana outside of Miles Turner, really young team.
And the
for
Rockets
most
have
part.
playoff JG.
And the Rockets are in a position where
Game 2,
Yeah.
JG.
they have playoff
I love you,
amen.
Dels.
Playoff amen. And that is a real thing.
Cook.
Keep it in your pants, Carson. I can see it poking.
I'm fully erect.
They have an interesting summer because what do you do with Jalen Green this summer? How do you
get better?
make that move to get better? You're sitting here and you're in all these conversations for Giannis, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. You're at the top of the board with all these players. You have this draft capital. You have the 10th overall pick. You've now tasted the playoffs. You've had last year where you finished strong at the end of the year. You had opportunity to be in the play-in. You missed it, if I'm not mistaken, unfortunately. Then this year you jump to a top 3 seed. You make the playoffs. You lose a tough 7 games to the greatest player I've ever seen in my life. And then now you're sitting here and you have Jalen Green on the roster. You have Alperen Sengun. You have Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Tyrese. You have all this young youth talent just sipping and pouring out of you. What are you going to do with it? I think their pressure is really different. I think their pressure is more just about them not making them like Joel, you mentioned with Minnesota. You don't want them to make a move that's too over the top. You don't want them to make a drastic move that ruins everything.
Well, they need to.
Yeah, I think Houston is in that situation where they're like, this is a make or break offseason in a sense of they can do nothing and maybe potentially not get the same modest improvements from all their young players. They can do something and it kind of ruin the chemistry or just ruin the team, like just the team foundation, or they can do something big and it makes them greater. I think that type of pressure for them. And then, of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, who really has bigger pressure than them? A team that was like the #1 seed in the league, one of the best offensive teams in the league, went to the playoffs, dealt with injuries, played like shit. you now have an offseason where you're looking to be more open to trading Jared Allen and Darius Garland because you're trying to win in this Donovan Mitchell era. You're trying to make this team a legit team. You're trying to make it ECF, and you're sitting there. You've seen Indiana make it 2 years in a row. You've seen the Knicks propel themselves to an ECF. You're kind of that one team that's sitting out where you haven't made that ECF yet. You know, Boston's done it, New York's done it, Indiana's done it. You're that one team sitting out that hasn't made it. That's another team where Kenny Atkinson, this is his first year, but you overachieved so much in your first year that just automatically breeds a lot of expectations.
Do you think they have to actually be aggressive this offseason, though? Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Just real quick, like when you're talking about pressure on the Cavs, obviously they have to perform better next year, but do they have to make a big change this offseason?
Jared Allen has to go.
You think he has to go?
Yeah,
Interesting.
Has to go.
It depends on the package they get. I think if they could get a premier wing defender for Allen, it makes a lot of sense because they need to upgrade their perimeter defense.
Yeah, I think if you walk into next year, like Carson, if you walk in next year with the same roster, I think you didn't fumble the offseason.
I don't know if I totally agree, just because I think like getting fully healthy is a huge factor for them. Jared Allen absolutely has to be better. And like, I do think that their best configuration long-term is Mobley at the 5. That being said, the double big stuff is very effective, at least in the regular season. And it gives them 30 minutes from each of those bigs where you always have a really good center on the floor. And the challenge for me with Allen is like, that guy's making $20 million a year. He's not a perfect basketball player, but he's a very good value contract. Can you move off of him and get a player who is as good or better? That's the challenge. And that's where I'm like with Cleveland. I'd run it back one more year, see what happens when we're fully healthy, see what version of Garland we get in the playoffs, see if Mobley can even expand his game a little bit more offensively. Because especially with Boston out of the picture, sorry, Dels, like, are you not at least co-favorite in the East next year with Indiana? Like, that's the thing. I just feel like they're looking at a
so New York just the most nowhere near. Like, golly, Carson.
They're healthy. I don't know. Like, I still feel like
Carson's just overlooking the Knicks.
Yo, the Cavs are better than the Knicks.
Oh, but they didn't make the conference finals, Carson.
If the Pacers,
if the Pacers beat the Knicks,
we lost the defending. We beat the defending champions.
They got hurt.
Well, they shit themselves. They soiled themselves on national
but
TV.
The Cavaliers didn't, huh? The Pacers.
No, listen. Okay, first of all, do we not care about injuries at all? Do we not care about the fact that it was brutal to even watch Darius Garland try to move because he couldn't explode without tripping and falling all over himself over and over again? And then even Donovan Mitchell couldn't explode in the last game.
Indiana that you're saying is now co-favorites.
Yeah, because I think that they're a much better team than we saw in that series when they were banged up.
Celtics who were favorites to go to the finals.
The Boston Celtics.
Torn meniscus, JB.
Let's not do
Porzingis couldn't breathe. Tatum gets hurt.
Porzingis really couldn't breathe.
Porzingis has never been a good playoff performer.
Couldn't move, couldn't shoot. No, what we saw from Porzingis was truly that was the closest thing I've ever seen to like an actual monsters. They took your abilities from basketball player. What we saw from Porzingis, that was unbelievable.
That was nuts.
But I just believe in the Cavs more. I think that their offense is significantly more potent than the Knicks. I think that they have a better defensive infrastructure. I think that they ran into a hell of a team in the Pacers who are also about to beat the Knicks. And I think that they got really banged up at the wrong time. They are.
Realistically,
Drew.
I swear to God, you better hook it up.
Drew, they're going to make the finals, and you called this dude a bum this very year. The pressure is not on my takes here.
No. This very year, I haven't.
You called him a bum, Drew? How could you?
In 2025? No, I haven't.
He's worse than LaMelo.
Riv is off the hook because Riv's playing this honorably, and I respect it.
No, I'm playing this honorably. I'm just holding you accountable.
There's nothing to hold me accountable for. I'm right. I've been right.
You continue to disrespect the New York Knicks, the co-favorites to a team that absolutely gagged it. Stop.
Who gagged it? The Celtics?
The Cavaliers.
Oh, yeah.
Cavs got hurt. Celtics got hurt. Riv, they just got hurt.
They don't care about
Riv,
that.
Now don't play the injury shit. Don't do it.
I haven't. I've never done it.
All right, I'm just keeping you accountable as well.
Listen,
injuries.
Carson's talking about the injury. I have not said one thing about the injury.
I'm just
it's just the truth. It's context.
I like that.
I did watch Darius Garland limp up the floor and like he really couldn't move, but also like you out there.
His defense is also not that good, right, Carson? Right, Carson?
No, it's not. Yeah, it's his liability. I like that Riv went with the Rockets as his team with the most pressure, even though I don't think they're under that much pressure. I think they are a team that was a second seed because they play hard every night. They play defense, but not necessarily because like they were like a real second seed. I think they were
Now,
always
Joel,
a clear
I wanna
first round
cut you off real
exit.
quick because I did say before I start, this isn't the team with the most pressure, but this is a team with
Yes,
a different type of
I
pressure.
understand. They need
Sneaky
to make a
pressure.
move, and the clear move is upgrading the 2-guard position.
But yeah,
But-
he
Oh, shit.
sucks.
I have there are 4 teams that I think are under the most pressure this offseason. Number 4, I think, is the Cavaliers. Number 3, I think, is the Warriors.
Let's go, Carson.
Number
Yeah.
2,
Let's do it,
I think,
Carson.
I agree. Let's do it. Let's lock
is
in.
the Denver Nuggets.
That would be
Yeah.
my number
You
one.
you take OKC to 7 games. It's clear that Jokic has a high enough ceiling and
Aaron
floor that
Gordon,
you can
respect him
take
too.
an all-time team like this to 7 games. You need to get some better help, some better depth around him. But all those 3 teams have something in common. They have an injury excuse they can use. The Cavaliers, we were injured. The Warriors, Steph was hurt.
We'd have
The
beat
Nuggets,
shit out of Minnesota.
Aaron Gordon, game 7 wasn't
MPJ.
healthy. MPJ was
Yeah.
hurt. They can use these injury excuses. The Lakers are number 1 because they can't use any excuse. Our
LeBron
LeBron had a
roster,
torn
our-
meniscus.
the Lakers roster wasn't good enough to get out the first round.
LeBron
that's
had
the
a
bottom
torn
line.
meniscus.
He was dancing a couple days after on video.
That's the
No, facts,
recovery
he was
period.
crazy.
You're not a
Facts, he
casual.
was.
That was a
Stop.
calm month after. A calm month after.
The Lakers got eliminated because their roster just isn't good enough. And the date that I'm looking for with the Lakers is August 2nd. That's when Luka is eligible to sign a 4-year, $229 million extension. This next season, he's under contract. Next year, he has a player
roster.
option that he can opt out into, and he can be a free agent if he chooses. That August 2nd deadline, although he's already said he wants to remain with the Lakers, I am curious to see that if Rob Pelinka doesn't push the right buttons, if Luka doesn't accept that extension and then opts to test free agency next offseason. I
Hey,
think
pal, the Don's here to
that's-
stay.
that's
Whether you
one of
like
the-
it or not.
that's one of the
Luka
biggest
Magic-
storylines for next
That's a
season in
Laker
the
for
NBA.
life.
Yo, Luka, come to Houston.
Be that ass.
Come to Houston.
Be honest.
That would be
He
nuts.
wants to
Go
go
to
there.
that goes from Dallas to Houston.
You can have everything but amen. I'm talking about everything's on the table.
Rob Pelinka this
No,
offseason
I
has
need
to
that.
make enough moves to where Luka looks at the roster and says, I can win with this. I can make a deep playoff run with this. And that's a lot of pressure on the Lakers.
Is it
100%.
reasonably possible for the Lakers to become a true contender this offseason?
Do we get Jared Allen?
No.
I'm asking
How-
a genuine question.
how
Do
you
we
gonna
get
get
Jared
Jared
Allen?
What are you offering?
That's
We
Oh,
would have to trade-
2023.
DFS?
we would have to trade Reeves.
20
Rui
31 first.
Hachimura.
I don't
Bro,
even
would
think
have
they
Rui
want.
DFS
I don't
first.
even think they want Reeves. I think that they would want
The
Wayne.
Cavs do not want Rui. Let's start there. They're good.
All right.
But they want DFS. DFS in Cleveland would be sick.
Hey, we'll send you a
I don't know
quote.
if I can. I don't know if I can afford to give him up genuinely. I'm not even
Yeah,
making.
can't.
A
You're
joke.
running out of good defenders.
No, I agree. That would be a huge problem for the Lakers.
Hey,
I'm
question-
not making a joke. We can't afford losing him because
He's
Vanderbilt.
untouchable. Yeah.
question-
Riv, you were
question,
right.
fellas.
Now that guy can't touch the court.
Because of course, Joel, I want to say this. I love your list. Your list was sound.
It was
was
very
good.
good.
Drew, the Lakers are number one. I love the fact that you went that route, the simple route, but the good route. Dales, you didn't go yet, but I know you're going to say something really intelligent. Carson, you didn't go yet, but I know you're going to say something better than
Probably
Dales.
not. Probably
Here's
not.
my question, though.
Fucking idiot.
Here's my question, though. I want to ask you guys a question about a specific team that was in the dumps 2 straight years, then propels themselves to a top 6 seed in the
Detroit
East.
basketball?
And they take the Knicks, which I think we can agree that series was tough. Like
That,
Knicks
yeah,
versus
that was a
Detroit,
toss-up series. They
That
should
shit
have
was,
got
that
bounced.
shit was that shit
Yeah.
was crazy.
Imagine the
much
Pistons play the
pressure-
Celtics.
Yeah, how much pressure do they have this all season
up
in
in
terms
5.
of just getting another guy for Cade? Ivy's obviously coming back from injury. You've seen Devin Booker potential in the market, Kevin Durant, stuff like that. You know, how much pressure do they have? Because they are also
think-
sitting in a situation where they can't be bad. They have to, at this point, we need you to be good consistently.
Yeah, if you're not top 6 seed again, it's a disappointment. But honestly, it's not just the Pistons. I'm looking at every single team in the East that's actually trying to win is under pressure. Because for the last 6 years, this conference has been run by 2 teams. It's been run by the Heat and Jimmy Butler. He got out of there. It's been run by the Boston Celtics, who are not going to be a contender next season.
Thank God.
So every other team that's been on the cusp of being a contender, whether you're looking at the Knicks, we're looking at the Pacers, if they, choke a 3-1 comeback, the Pistons, the Cavaliers, whoever it might be, you have as good of a chance as ever, and maybe ever, because in 2027, Tatum's coming back. We're winning a chip.
They just lost in the second round. by the way.
To potentially win a championship and go to the finals. So I'm not just looking at the Detroit Pistons, who I think are under pressure because you have a top 6 seed, and there was kind of with the not thrown together roster, but with some pieces that we're not looking at outside of maybe three or four guys that are long-term options. It's kind of a roster that feels a bit incomplete. I'm also looking at the Orlando Magic, a team that we had very high expectations for this upcoming season. Of course, injuries derailed their season a bit. Paulo and Franz having the same injury, both missed like over a month. Of course, Jalen Suggs too. Thank you. The KCP contract was a disaster.
Wagner was their best.
I mean, the injuries were they came bunches for them, and they came hard and they came fast. But there was a lot of injuries that Magic had to go through. But they're another team that every single year, they're going to be trading for Anthony Simons. They're going to be trading for LaMelo Ball. Whatever score first point guard is out there, they've been trying to trade for. They haven't been able to make any trade. And I feel like going into next season with the East being so wide open, although they won't be favorites or co-favorites or tri-favorites, whatever the case might be, if you get Apollo and Franz who can improve his jump shooters, you get a Jalen Suggs who is healthy and get back to that three-point shooting we saw from 2 years ago, and you add another reliable offensive piece, all of a sudden we're looking at a team that I don't want to say too high expectations for them offensively because they were the second or third worst offense in basketball last season. But you could still be that, top 5 defense, and you could be maybe like a top 15, top 18 offense. All of a sudden, maybe you can win a playoff series if you get the right matchup. So I think all of those teams in the Eastern Conference, outside of maybe like the goddamn Wizards who are just completely tanking right now, all of them have a chance to win a playoff series next year legitimately. Of course, we're still looking at the Cavs and the Knicks and the Pacers as favorites, but there's going to be teams in that 4, 5, 6, 7 range. The 76ers, who is Embiid going to be healthy? Can Paul George bounce back into being just a serviceable player? Tyrese Maxey
back
there. Yabu is a free agent, but he played fantastic for them. Yabusele?
Oh, him. Yes.
Yeah, Yabusele. Yabu, you never heard that nickname?
No.
Maybe that was a Boston nickname back in the day.
What did you call him, Riv? You called him Yabba Dabba Doo or something.
He said Yabba Dabba Dabba. But all of those teams are under pressure. But Philly's another one too. Because if you get a healthy Embiid, why can't they be a top 4 or 5 seed in the East?
We're back.
I think every team in the East is going to be ultra aggressive, with Boston being out the picture this upcoming year.
Yeah, I think Orlando's a great shout. I think Orlando has more pressure on them than Detroit, just because Detroit, obviously, they took the leap this year. And it's okay, let's get Jaden Ivey back and healthy and see how things go. I would not have any problem with Detroit being aggressive, but I also think with Orlando, okay, now we saw them make the leap last year and be really quite competitive in a first-round series and push Cleveland to 7. And then it felt like they took a step back this year. And obviously injuries were a part of it with Suggs and Mo Wagner, but they obviously had Paolo and Franz healthy by the playoffs, and the offense around them was just so incompetent that you have to feel like everybody outside of those two was on the table, and you feel confident about those two because of the level that they played at in the postseason. I think obviously, like you said, Dells, they need an elite offensive guard. There's a very real possibility that they need to upgrade the Wendell Carter Jr. position at center, even though I thought he played pretty well in the playoffs, but it was a bad regular season for him. You need a bench point guard. They've got a number of needs, and it does feel like the timeline for them is a little bit more accelerated just because we were so pleasantly surprised with Detroit this year, and we were so disappointed with Orlando this year.
I like that. What about
I'm shocked nobody mentioned the Bucks. How they don't have pressure because of everything's transpiring with Giannis.
Going to be out for the year, right?
Yeah,
they're just cooked.
I just think they're. I don't know what move they can make. They're a second apron team.
Kyle Kuzma, 30 shots a game. We're here.
Yeah,
terrible. Love it. I think Denver has the most pressure on them. I do, because I think that obviously they ended up getting very close against OKC. OKC was clearly the better team. They had a plus 64 point differential or something. The games that they won, 2 of them at least, were blowouts, and Denver had to grind out super close wins in all of theirs. But you were closer than anybody else in the West. You have the best player in the world, and yet back-to-back years, you've only won 2 total playoff series. That's not good enough. And I think that looking at the roster for Denver, it was clear that they would be one of the upper echelon teams in the West, but that they weren't going to be able to go out there and win a title this year. I actually thought that the playoffs was the best that they played because their defense was such an improvement from the regular season. But I think you have to look at MPJ and say, that dude is not worth $40 million. Obviously, I feel for him with the AC sprain and these playoffs affecting his shooting, but he is so singularly dependent on that shooting. He's just not an impactful basketball player in any other way. I think they want to get off of that contract. I think that they want to get a more defensive-minded two-way wing, and I think they want to improve their depth. Like, you don't want to be preying on a Julian Strawther masterclass out of nowhere to save you in a playoff game. They need a more complete roster with more depth, with more defensive talent overall, ideally with more three-point shooting, because they should be contending every year, like flat out. They won a title in 2023. They have the best player in the world, and they took a bad approach to team building for the next 2 years, and they invested too much in unknown young players, and they let some really valuable role players walk, and they didn't replenish that talent. Seeing how close they were this year, even in spite of all that, like, they have to be aggressive. They have to be more serious this offseason. And I'm kind of worried they won't be, because it sounds like they're thinking, even though they shook things up, firing Calvin Booth and firing Michael Malone, is like, we basically believe we have the dudes internally. It's just about developing and getting the most out of all of them. And I just don't agree with that. I think that they should be adding known commodities who can help them win now. I think they should move off of MPJ. And if they don't, that would be very disappointing and frustrating.
What's your thoughts on the Pelicans? You saw how they sent Zion out to do their draft lottery thing. And usually when you send a guy out to do that, you're probably going to keep him. What's just our
With
overall
Zion's
outlook?
recent news, I don't know.
I'm just talking Zion, the basketball player. What's our just total outlet on the Pelicans, like their pressure?
Depression.
Well, they're having a fire sale, and I think that the weird thing about the Pelicans is that, oddly enough, they're trash, but they have a lot of really good players that on other teams would be fantastic.
Awesome
And
role
that's
players, yeah.
what it's about. Like Herb Jones, I think could fit on every team. Trey Murphy, I think could fit on any team. I think Zion pretty much zapped any sort of value he had with the recent allegations that
Jose
came
Alvarado's
against him.
solid too.
And I don't think any team's going to be after Zion this offseason. So the Pelicans are pretty much stuck with him and the ongoing things that he has. But I think
that DeJounte Murray too.
Yeah, like
terrible.
I think CJ McCollum, Trey, Herb Jones are like the only tradable pieces. Jose Alvarado,
CJ's making
I guess you
35.
can throw in there. But yeah, I think Herb Jones and Trey Murphy can go for a lot on the market. And Carson, you mentioned the Jared Allen trade thing, and I put on my Twitter Herb Jones and Yves Misi for Jared Allen. The Pelicans looking for a center, and I think it makes sense for the Cavs. I don't know if the Pelicans would want to do that, given where their roster might be currently at. They might want some future assets for Herb Jones, but overall, I think that the Nuggets should get an upgrade over MPJ. Even though he's making $40 million, it's going to be hard to get an upgrade over him. I thought he had a fantastic season. He was just hurt in the playoffs, and he's also been inconsistent in the past. I actually like Kevin Durant to the Nuggets a lot. I like Michael Porter Jr. being the staple in that package. Denver owns all of their first round picks. I would send MPJ and some salary filler like Zeke Naji and Dario Saric and like 4 first round picks for Kevin Durant.
Oh, Jesus.
4 firsts for
You think
KD.
that's? I was gonna say. You think it
I
costs
would-
that much?
I would send whatever it takes for the MPJ with the salary fillers with 2 first round picks, whatever it is. I'm sending it because I think it makes the most sense for KD. I think there's a bigger hill to climb for KD to go to Minnesota and for them to get to the finals and realistically win. I think if he is paired up with Jokic and he's playing off of him and what he provides defensively as a weak side rim protector, I think that's the perfect match. And because the Denver Nuggets aren't a second apron team, they'd be able to take on his salary as well, and it would be able to work. So if I'm Denver, that's the one move on my end, and I'd be all for them going all in to go get Kevin Durant.
Do you think the Nuggets and Suns would deal with one another?
I don't see why not if it's a good offer.
I will say, I think the Nuggets can only give swaps until 2031. So I think it would have to be the 2031 first and then maybe like 2 swaps. So it's not
Ooh,
as
mad
Their
at,
like,
picks for
2025 is going
Aaron
to
Gordon.
Orlando. 2027 is going to OKC. 2029 is going to OKC, of course. Fucking
I'm not
Denver,
mad
man.
though if I'm the Suns. I'd rather have picks in the 2030s from Denver than 2026, 27 because you're
Very true.
expecting Jokic to be there, KD to
Yeah.
be there. Like this is gonna be an awesome team.
In the
Yeah.
2030s, it could be really bad.
Yeah,
The question is just, I don't know, how much do they value MPJ as an asset, if at all, as a
Exactly.
positive when you're paying him that much? Like, you probably do need some real draft
that
capital
feels
to
more of
juice
a
that.
rebuild rebuild move compared to the Wolves, which feels
Yeah.
like retooling. Yeah.
Exactly.
For Denver side though, I mean, I think it's amazing. Like, dude, just if I'm most teams in the West, most teams are trying to take that leap. I'm very interested in Kevin Durant, especially if I am on an older timeline. So I'm not accelerating things. I'm not like forcing a window. Like, this is a guy who can absolutely swing a championship.
What can you swing?
I can swing that meat, bro.
Yo, since we're living in hypotheticals, you think LA can get KD somehow, some way?
How? You need to make up
Austin?
50 million.
Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura,
14, 25.
two first, and that's years ago that we got.
You're 30 million short.
You're so delusional. It's fun. I
Are we
love
30
you, bro.
million short?
Katie's making 50.
He just made up that like, yo, how can we get Kevin Durant?
I said the same thing 2.5 years ago when Luka was in Dallas and it looked like the Mavericks' future was trending in the wrong direction. I thought that Nico Harrison had to push all the right buttons to make sure Luka stays in Dallas because I wasn't confident in him building a contender around him. He ended up building a team, but then he traded Luka.
Yeah,
And
push the
now
nuke button.
I'm
That's
having
hilarious.
I'm having those same reservations with the Lakers and where their roster is at right now. If Luka remains loyal, which his character has pointed to that, he stayed with Real Madrid for a long time. He was never going to leave Dallas. It seems like he's a really loyal guy and he's willing to ride it out. Then maybe he signs that extension.
I'm gonna ride it with him.
In the offseason, if the Lakers don't significantly improve, I wonder if Luka is going to be there long term. I really do.
I know you're hoping and praying for it, pal.
I just
But
couldn't.
if Luka,
I
if
just-
Luka
I'm-
waits
I'm
a
ho-
year,
All I'm hoping and praying for is Luka goes to a contending team. That's all I'm
can't
hoping
Luka
and
get
praying
the
for.
Supermax next offseason, right? Because he didn't make All NBA this past year. Or like you have to make it like 2 out of 3, something like that. And he didn't make it 2 years ago because he was injured. I believe if he doesn't opt in this year, opt in by extending, and he waits till next season, then he get the 5-year, like, $300 whatever million contract.
I don't think the Supermax is eligible if you're not remained with the team for a significant period of time. That might be the Supermax though. Like
Yeah.
was
I thought he
Shea's
was still eligible a year.
no, it was Shea is eligible for like 70 million per season. I think 70, 75 million because he's been with OKC, he's MVP, he's made all NBAs. With Luka, a big reason why Nico Harrison trading him sucked was because not only did he like rip him away from the city and from the fan base,
Yeah.
but he also lost out on a lot of money by leaving Dallas because the money he was going to get staying there on the Supermax versus with the Lakers, it is totally different. So those are just the cons in him right now.
It is crazy that the league punishes dudes for that because, like, it'd be one thing if you chose to sign with another team as a free agent. Then I can see being like, okay, we have to give some incentive for you to stay with the team that drafted you, so only they can pay you more. But when that team trades you, it's crazy that you still lose out on that potential money.
Yeah,
cooked
so
up,
I wonder what's going to happen.
I cooked up this fun keep 3 cut 5. If you guys are interested,
I'm always interested in anything you have to offer, Riv.
Do
you
it.
want to fuck me? You want to fuck me? And I don't.
You wouldn't be the only one.
Yeah,
don't
I think
blame
everybody here does.
You gotta stop, Carson, because word around the street is I'll be dead serious.
You come right through the screen, bro. I will fly you out here tomorrow.
Yo, fly me out.
I will fly you out here tomorrow.
Yo, Drew, serious question.
Yes, sir.
For the right price, would you trade Austin Reeves this summer?
100%.
What would be the right? Like, give me a realistic right price.
Getting a center.
Jeez.
Like, if
Getting a
it's
center.
Jared Allen and they like, yo, we need Reeves, would you do it?
Yeah. Here's the right price, and it's nasty.
So is it really the right price?
It's nasty. I feel like the Jazz low key can give us the right price.
You want
The
Walker,
Walker Kessler
or
deal?
John Collins?
Yeah. No. Walker Kessler. I need a big boy. I need a big
Mhm.
boy.
What
and-
about
and bring me
boy.
Jordan Clarkson.
what about negotiating with the Mavericks and getting
I don't think
Derek
that money's
Lively
gonna work.
and PJ Washington
For who?
for Reeves?
I don't think they're
I
going
don't
to
think they
want to
give
do
him Derek
business with
Lively.
us
Maybe
again.
Gafford.
They
I
didn't even
also
get
don't
Austin
think-
Reeves in the Luka deal, which
Yeah,
they
OD, they
absolutely could
folded.
have.
I don't know if we're going to be allowed to do business with the Mavericks from here on out. However, I do believe the Jazz are the team or is the team that could make us better.
They got a lot
Like
of
Jared Allen would move mountains for me without a shadow of a doubt, but I feel like sellers are going to be the Jazz.
Hey,
and
Robert
we can
Williams.
capitalize.
Carson, how many Jazz games did you watch this past year?
10 maybe.
What's the temperature on Walker Kessler?
Good. Very good.
Is
I mean, one of the best rim protectors in basketball.
Is he the needle mover for the Lakers if they get him?
I love an Austin Reeves for Walker Kessler deal. Now, I don't think that he is the lone needle mover necessarily, but I think that he absolutely solves their issue at the 5. And then I think that, they just need to continue to build out the depth with like actual
Trade Gabe Vincent for Robert Williams.
I wouldn't hate that, not even a little bit. However, Gabe's defense was solid when he played.
And Rob Will played like 20 games.
Yeah, that's
Rob Will is an injury-prone guy who is good when he plays.
He is definitely good when he plays.
So by the time this comes out, maybe this question becomes obsolete. But Brunson or Haliburton, who has more to gain by making the NBA Finals?
More to gain?
The dude that's playing for the biggest city in the world.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson, hands down.
I don't know. I would say Hallie just because of the disrespect.
I'm sure.
No, but like, is that not true? Like, public opinion of Jalen Brunson hasn't changed that much. Public opinion is only finally kind of catching up to Hallie and how good he actually is. And I think that the way that you cement that is you make it undeniable with a deep playoff run. And the deeper you go, the more the narrative changes as it should.
Chasing a ghost. Also, obviously, Indiana, they definitely have been in the mud for a long time. And Tyrese is
actually not really.
Not in the mud.
Indiana's been a relatively good team for
agreed, but they've been chasing a chip for a while, is what I really mean to say.
Never gotten one,
But New York, the city of New York's been starving for a men's championship because, of course, the Liberty just delivered. But nothing's ever good enough for New York. They really need this Knicks championship. They want it really badly. Jalen Brunson really gets into real conversations with Knicks history if he delivers that
chip since Ali versus Foreman. That type of vibe. It's been
I guess like just the New York market factor of it. And obviously, like you guys are in the area, so maybe you have a different perception of that than I do. But
ear is in the streets.
Yeah,
we're in the streets. You know what the people are saying.
I feel like as a basketball fan, like just purely taking that aspect out of it, looking at like from an objective basketball perspective, who's like public opinion of them is affected more, and therefore who gains more. I think that it's absolutely Hallie. I think that we've already seen that in this playoff run. And I agree. We've seen that. This guy was called the most overrated 2 weeks before the playoffs.
This guy's not.
And now we're finally getting him into the conversations that he should.
He's not giving it up, and I respect that. I wouldn't give it up.
How could they, man? Like audacity of them people.
I had the audacity.
Drew was ahead of the curb with Haliburton. He was.
Cool.
Drew was ahead of the curb. Because
for hating
before the athletic poll came out about who the most overrated player in the NBA is, he was the first person to say it.
Hey, it was a common take, bro.
It's this guy.
Carson, they don't talk about when the draft came out. I was high or Hallie, man. I was high, man.
We're just getting so let off the hook here, bro. But
that's crazy.
I'm just saying, I was
Josh Giddey over him. That shit.
And when I was tapped in, in November, Haliburton was Dookie.
Wait. Did you lie? Or
because I was talking.
I made it up, but it could be true.
Oh, it could be.
I believe it.
Nah, I think Brunson. No, I hate Josh Giddey more than Hallie, so that's impossible.
You know what also bothers me, and Joel, you of all people, like I'd anticipate you feel this. Like at the moment when I spoke, my statement was true. Since then, that statement has become false. But in that time, I have also said, Haliburton's been really damn good.
Interesting.
It wasn't true because
interesting.
You know what I mean? Like you
can't overreact to small sample size, especially when a dude is hurt. You have to understand the cause.
Jalen Brown.
Carson, you're an objective man.
What are you saying about Jalen Brown?
Can we be objective and say at that time he wasn't good?
He was playing badly and he was hurt.
But
and
Carson,
we weren't talking.
He was great. He was great at home. That's what I never understood. He was on the road. He was.
That was more so like in December, like around that time period.
He needs his bed.
Look, what I'm saying is a dude having a bad 15-game start to the regular season shouldn't have cause a referendum on who he is as a basketball player.
It goes back to last year,
and then 2025 starting.
To be fair,
last year when he was also hurt, but then he was really good in the playoffs.
Was Tyrese Haliburton ever a top 15 player coming into the season? No.
Right outside. Right outside.
Top 20.
Right outside. Dude, I ranked our top 20, or we ranked our top 30 players in March, and I had him 18.
Hey, Carson, I'll say this, man.
I've been here with Hallie.
Devin Booker and Tyrese Haliburton.
Hallie. And I like
my
Book a lot.
God.
Carson, when Drew sees a player play like shit, he ain't giving him no leeway.
Catch
brother.
up,
They
Drew.
drop.
Sell that
They drop.
Jalen Green stock and buy
They
a little
drop.
Hallie stock, man. You're about to
Jalen
go
Green is
broke.
solely because I enjoy watching him play. I know who he is.
God knows
Who is
how.
he?
I will never give up on him because
Who is
I
he?
enjoy watching
who is
him
he?
play. I know who he is.
Like,
You
what's his
enjoy
ranking
watching
in the
him
league?
play 1 in every
Poor
7
man's
games.
Michael
Yes.
Jordan. That's where he
When
takes
he-
6 out of
when-
7, he's a
when he
terrible
peaks-
watch.
When he peaks, I peak. Take that as you will.
I don't
I
disagree
wanna
with
see
that, but
that,
it's just
man. I'm
way
excited
too
for that
few
peak.
and far
Game
That
two was
highlight tape
electric.
is up there with the GOATs.
Highlight tape is electric. The actual
That's
basketball
what
product.
that's that's where I'm at.
Well, he's historically played more bad games than good games in the
Far
NBA.
more.
And I'm not
Like,
going to
insane.
disagree.
Far more
I
smart.
know I know my truth when it comes to Jalen Green.
And he's
He
healthy
looks
too.
cool
That's
as hell
bad
doing
part.
it
Like,
sometimes.
he's
He just
relatively
ass?
healthy. He's just
My
ass.
favorite thing about takes is that they live forever, man. And there's a right side of history and a wrong side of history.
Oh,
No, but
Drew,
isn't
you
that
can be on the
amazing?
wrong side
At
of
the
history as much
moment,
as you want.
you can talk about the objective truth, but if it ages badly,
Because you
we're not
took
gonna
it
let you-
beyond.
we're
No,
not
because
gonna
you took
let
it
you
beyond.
be
Drew,
right-
there's a
be
difference between
right
saying
or
a guy
care
is
about
playing
right
badly
what you
and
said was
saying
wrong.
this guy is better than that guy. When
Yo,
you were
Joel,
talking about player
in
rankings,
November, LaMelo
you don't
was
rank
better.
players big picture in November.
Yo,
You can
Joel
talk
and-
about who's
Joel
playing
and
well
Dell.
and
LaMelo
badly.
was averaging 30.
Question: Joel and Dels.
And
'Cause
guess
I
what?
feel
Some
like-
of us could see he was going to fall off and Hallie was going to bounce back. And this is exactly what I said
You
to
were
you.
guessing. You were
No,
No, I
guessing.
wasn't. I was 100% right
You ended
because
up
I knew
being
what
right, like
Hallie
you
had
were wrong
played at
about Jalen
previously, the level
Brunson.
he was
It's
at,
all
and
a
who
Second
gas.
time we've
LaMelo
argued
is.
about
You were
this.
wrong
Same
about
show.
Brunson.
I'm not wrong
You
about
were right
Brunson.
about Hallie. So I give you the pat on the back. I give you a little bit more if you really want it. But for Hallie, but what are we doing for Brunson? What
What
are
am
we
I
doing?
wrong about with Brunson?
What
Saying
are
that
we
he's
doing?
a top 13 player?
Keep saying
That's
top
not
13. You're still
disrespectful.
not right.
Pushed it back. You said 12 before. Something's off here.
No. I'm saying him and Hallie are 12 and 13.
Joel and Drew. Question. I mean, Joel and Dels. Because Drew said he said something that hit me home. He said he hates when people act like what he's saying at the moment is not objectively true and then try to make it seem like they're wrong. Now, I remember them Jalen Brown conversations. And I remember when I was talking about Jalen Brown at one point, and I was like, yo, bro, his defense hasn't been what it was this year. I was correct in the moment. And then Jalen Brown, the very next season,
Locked up
bounced
Luka.
back.
Yeah.
And Drew kept making it seem like I was wrong. I feel like the consistency here is just not, it's not giving what I'm liking. I'm not feeling where he's coming from. And Drew, you're a consistent man. I feel like lately you've lost it.
Riv,
You know what?
You have
Riv,
admitted
I think
that
Dad?
Steve Nash is Haliburton
Unfortunately, by
reincarnated.
accident, I did do this. We're here.
Carson, Riv has admitted he has seen the light.
Yo,
He is
Carson, I did it.
calling.
And I didn't mean to. But
He
here we
said
are.
Tyrese Haliburton is the
W
modern
Riv.
day Steve Nash. He's done criticizing
He said the
him,
last offseason.
at least when
was
he
ahead.
plays well. Because you
Riv.
best believe if Hallie has a month stretch where he's bad again, Riv is gonna be the first one
I'm back.
talking about it.
Oh,
But
I'm gonna
Riv
text
enjoys
Carson
it. That's
so
the
fast.
I know.
Like
I
Riv
know. And
enjoys hating on Hallie.
And you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because Riv isn't trying to spin reality. He's not trying to hedge his take and say, "Oh, at the time it was correct," or "Oh, now
Who's
I love
hedging?
Hallie."
At the
Riv
time,
is
he was
just
piss
going
water.
down with the shit.
I would.
Yeah.
I would.
You're
He
edgy,
was
bro.
Terrible.
You're edging. You're edging.
No. I've never edged a day in my life, baby. If I wanted, I'm doing it. That came out terrible. Let me go back.
Okay, yeah.
That being said, in November, he was bad objectively.
Drew.
From January to now,
bad
he's been
objectively.
great, and all I've done is say
he was
been great.
also hurt. My point is, you took it beyond. He's
Second
playing
time
bad right
problem.
now, and you tried to put people above him in the hierarchy, and that's a different thing.
LaMelo was
And
playing better.
what is this in the moment? Do you re-rank your players every couple weeks, bro?
That's
no.
kind of how it starts.
Yo, Carson, ask him
No.
where he had Steph at
Because
beginning
where
of the
was
year.
Tyrese
please.
Where did you have Steph
Haliburton
at the
last
beginning of the
season?
year,
Oh my
Drew?
God.
Where did you have
Ask-
Steph at
ask-
the beginning of the year, Drew?
Ask him before Jimmy Butler where he had Steph at.
When
Drew, where did you have
Haliburton
Steph?
comes out of the gate in the
He doesn't wanna
in-season
answer.
tournament and he's averaging 28 and 12, you had Haliburton as the best point guard in the league at that time, correct?
What?
When he
Who?
was averaging 28 and 12, he was playing like the best guard in basketball, was he not?
There's a difference between saying somebody's playing like this
That's
over
what
a
I was
3-game
saying.
stretch and saying he is this.
Oh, so you're saying what I was doing is wrong, but when you do
Yes.
it, it's cool?
That's what he's saying. Yes.
Oh,
correct.
When am I
got
doing
it.
this?
'Cause
Hold on,
at
how
the
am I
moment,
doing this?
LaMelo was playing better than Tyrese, and that's
LaMelo was
what I
averaging like
said.
35. He was wild.
He was
Bro,
on
the
some
LaMelo
shit, but it
stuff
was
was so
also
fake.
like-
My point is, you have to be able to see when
Oh,
something is
shit.
fake and when it's
Got
real.
it. Got it. No, because clearly 28 was fake. That was fake.
When are you insinuating that I said that Hallie was a guy who was going to average 28 and 12 ever? That I ever said Hallie was the best? Like,
Watching
I've never
28 and
said
12,
these things.
No, I'm sure I could go into the NerdSesh vault and be like, oh my God.
Please
Tyrese
try.
Haliburton, this motherfucking guy. I'm watching Steve Nash, but like he's averaging like 12 more points a game.
Drew,
jerk off
please
thing.
actually try to do this, because what I am doing is referring to things you actually said that I heard
Oh.
you say and I had to argue about with you.
Mm.
You are making up things
What
that
did
I
I
guess
say exactly
I
that
could
was
have
wrong?
said.
What did I
Bro.
say that was wrong?
LaMelo.
LaMelo over Hallie. That's the
Okay,
one
so
that I will
that's it.
never forget.
So LaMelo over
No,
Hallie,
everything
that's
you
it.
said about Hallie, go rewatch that
It
episode.
was right at the moment. He was
Everything
playing
aged
like
horribly.
trash.
No, because you also acted
I
like
love it
that
at that
wasn't
moment.
hurt. You
Is that
acted
It's
like
always right
this
at
was
the
some legitimate, sustainable thing.
Carson,
Carson, where
was
do you
that,
have LaMelo
was that
ranked?
wrong? Was Hallie
LaMelo?
pretty good?
He's
Yeah,
top 300.
where do you have
He's top
LaMelo ranked in the league?
LaMelo, in terms of like actual.
You probably
I
weren't
don't
a
What's
know.
really
Cade
the
guy
difference between
either. I
LaMelo
guess.
and
50
Payne
something?
Pritchard
You
on his
probably
own
weren't a
team?
Cade guy.
Oh, really? Why don't you watch my video from last year saying Cade Cunningham is not the problem, actively defending his
Oh,
ass
but
off?
LaMelo's
and
the
everybody
problem.
trying to say that he fell off.
Carson,
Yeah.
LaMelo's the problem.
Some of us are able to isolate these factors, Drew, and
Interesting,
see
but
what's
LaMelo's the
sustainable and what
problem.
isn't.
So LaMelo's the reason why
LaMelo
Charlotte
is
is
not
the
a
worst
talented-
organization in
He's
basketball.
not the problem. No, he's not the problem.
Top
He's not on
300.
Tyrese Haliburton's level.
No, we're just using hyperbole, I guess, and we choose.
So where do
pick
you
and
have him ranked?
choose.
Like, is LaMelo better than like Trae Young, or he's under Trae Young?
Absolutely not. He's
Where's
way
he
under
ranked?
Trae
Like,
Young.
what tier of guards is he?
He is
Jason Wallace tier, because that's how it sounds. to
Fred?
me.
no. I mean, LaMelo does some very good stuff out there, and he does some very bad stuff out there. He's
Jordan Poole?
well outside the top 10. No, he's a lot better than Jordan Poole. He's a
Really?
lot better than Jordan Poole.
Is he better
Yes,
than Jamal
absolutely.
Murray?
I think that depending on the context, I think he's in that Jamal Murray tier. That's the guy who I was going to say. I think that they're pretty comparable.
See,
Okay,
that-
I promise you, I'm not upset with that at all.
I'll be honest. I would
Okay.
take that and run.
Are you kidding me?
Jamal
That is
Murray
like
tier.
that's
Holy
why
shit.
I'm
Wait,
not
wait.
stressing over it. You're
Where do
telling
you
me
have
that
Jamal
LaMelo's
Murray?
still a
What-
great
what-
player.
Well, I have Jamal Murray. I have Jamal
Top
Murray
250?
20 something spots below Hallie.
Oh,
Jamal Murray is like
Something?
around the
Wait, no, like in the grand
40-ish.
scheme of like all the players,
Yeah.
But,
Like
in
they're
terms of,
like,
point
like I would
guards.
have
24 guards
LaMelo.
would be nuts.
because that's all
I
I
would-
give a damn
no, no,
about
no.
when I'm
I would have
talking about-
LaMelo and Jamal Murray overall in my player rankings.
Like top
They probably
50.
both be somewhere in the 40s. Yeah. And as point guards, they're both, I don't know, off the top of my head, in like that 12 to 15 range, just because point guard's pretty loaded. Maybe 13 to 15. I don't know. I'd have to really
15,
think
man.
about it.
Ooh.
How many
Jamal-
point guards are
Jamal
better
has
than
fallen
LaMelo?
He fell
So
off. OD.
we
Sure.
have
Jamal has
we have
fallen off.
Luka, Shea,
Jamal has fallen off.
Brunson, Hallie,
Derek White.
Cade.
You probably
Cade.
were a Jamal Murray guy over
Ja.
Tyrese Haliburton too at one point in time, but we'll let you off the hook. We'll let you off the
Steph.
hook.
In
Trey.
2023 for a
Trey.
We'll
moment.
let you off the hook.
Not once
Because
Hallie
it's all
took his
the
lead.
vision.
I think it's like,
Brunson.
10,
Oh,
like
in the moment,
man,
Carson.
Fox.
Fucking guy.
Fox.
Fox,
Yeah,
I think
Fox.
is better.
Are we
Fox is
adding
better
Dame
than
to the
LaMelo.
list, or we're just keeping Dame off?
Dame
I
is
would say
dead.
Dame
Dame's
off.
off,
Yeah.
Okay.
That-
Dame
Yeah.
off.
Unfortunately.
But yeah.
I mean, I'll
Sadly.
be honest. We could still put Dame.
Oh, we
I'm taking
definitely.
him,
I mean,
man.
Dame this
is
year,
better than both of
was
them.
much better
We
than
can
LaMelo.
still-
Hell
put
yeah,
that.
Dame was mad good this year. Austin
Um,
Reeves, to be serious.
Harden.
Harden is
Garland.
absolutely better than LaMelo.
Comfortable.
Garland is significantly better.
We're here. You're getting
No,
Maxie.
no.
I mean, if you want to put Reeves, that helps us. Yeah, let's put Reeves.
Maxie's better than LaMelo.
What about Tyler Hero?
Oh God,
No.
Is Maxey better than LaMelo?
Maxie's more of a 2 guard than me, but we can put him on the list.
But
the
Carson,
first
I'm
one. Harden?
not joking. Like
That's not a clearing. That's not a
okay,
clearing. I
'cause
think that's
Tyrese
pretty
is
close.
really inefficient when Joel and PG are not on the court. And
Of
fair,
course
because
he
it's
is.
just him.
Yes,
But I feel the same way about LaMelo.
he's a
It's
great
just
playoff
him.
performer, though.
He is. You're right.
Yeah,
there.
I think that Maxey is clearly the better scorer. I think that LaMelo is clearly the better playmaker. I think that Maxey is the more capable defensive player.
I think.
So I'd probably give him the slight edge.
I think Maxey is actually like one of the most defined. You know exactly what you're getting type of players in the sense of like, you know, if he's playing with great players, he can seamlessly fit next to those players as just a pure catch, go off the catch and shoot, go get a bucket, score, hit threes, tough shots, and then he can defend. That's really like you're not even gonna ask him to do all that playmaking stuff because he's still working on that. But I think he's like the perfect just scoring machine, especially in the playoffs. Like he plays great off Embiid. You know, he even at times takes the tough shots at the end of games because of how effective he is.
Game 5.
Yeah.
That definitely rang true when he absolutely backpacked and willed them to game 6.
There's been a lot of talk about OKC. They're statistically one of the best teams ever. I think they're second all time in net rating through the regular season and the playoffs. But there is, I think, a difference between being statistically one of the best teams ever and being one of the best teams ever. Do you think that this OKC team stacks up with some of the greatest teams that we have seen, or is it only statistically that way? But if hypothetically we put these two teams on the court together, 7-game series, they match up with these other all-time great teams throughout history.
Well, let's define what's all-time great teams first. And
Who's
then
in this category?
so like
let me give you a bar, and
Yep.
then I'll give you a hypothetical matchup, and you tell me who do you take.
Okay.
So the bar, when I think of all-time great teams, I think of the 2017 Warriors,
Yes.
KD's first year. I think of the 96 Bulls.
Yep.
I think of the 86 Celtics, the
Yep.
01 Lakers, the 2013 Heat, the 2014 Spurs, the 2016 Cavaliers.
Okay,
I think I could put in here.
whoa.
I think
All right.
we're in a couple different
Yeah.
tiers.
We just like dropped multiple tiers there really fast.
2016 Cavs, great team, did a historic thing all time.
What's wrong with that?
Roster wise,
The first 4, Joel, I agree. I think those are 4
I
of
think
the
they're
top
the
5.
first 4 like a tier above.
Yo,
Then I
2024
think-
Celtics.
2024
team.
Celtics are like a top 20 team. Here, I have some more teams that I would consider top 10, and maybe you guys will say that these are too far throwbacks, but whatever. I judge everybody.
1969.
Yeah,
relative.
I didn't want to do the throwback.
Seven-
aspect.
71 Bucks,
Celtics.
71 Bucks,
79
72
Sixers.
Lakers. Okay, the 67 Sixers. That was a hell of a team. 16-13 dominated the playoffs. But then
Oh
we can
my
even go
God.
Showtime Lakers 87, 83 Sixers.
Now
we're
Moses
cooking.
Patrick
Yep.
Fofo team. The 91 Bulls. I mean, realistically, the 97 Bulls. There's multiple different Bulls teams. that
All
probably
Bulls with
belong
Michael
there.
Jordan.
I would go all of those before we get to like the 2013 Heat, definitely the 2016 Cavs, 2014 Spurs. I think are like in that
he's
top
sick.
20 range.
2016 still hurts.
Always it will until the day I die. But
Okay,
that- but-
I feel that exact same way. I wouldn't
think-
put them all time, even though
I
they
wanted
beat
to
the
use
best
more
team.
No,
modern
but-
teams.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
do it.
Because it's hard for us to say, okay, 50 years from now, would this OKC team beat that team? It's too far back. Just even looking back 2 years ago, the Denver Nuggets, we
This
can all
OKC
say
is better.
they were
OKC.
Denver
They were
that
good. They were
team
all time.
is better than the Denver team that OKC played in these playoffs, and this Denver team took them to 7 games. Do you think in a hypothetical matchup, the 23 Nuggets could beat this 25
Yes.
OKC team?
Yes, they can beat that Nuggets, that OKC team, and I say that with
Can.
respect. They can.
That's an interesting
Can,
point, Joel.
Because you get a healthy MPJ who was playing the best basketball. He was amazing that entire run. Jamal was amazing that entire run. KCP was actually shooting the basketball very well. And then Bruce Brown coming off the bench too was really good for them. Aaron Gordon was amazing defensively. Wasn't the three-point shooter that he was this season, which could be a difference in the series as well. We can definitely note that. But that team was perfect. Like all in all, like they were amazing in that run at least. And
Yeah.
again, the defensive performances that you got out of Jokic, that you got out of MPJ, that you got out of Aaron Gordon, and with that level of scoring and playmaking that you got from Jamal Murray, it's just a different team than what we got this year.
I think
Jamal's the X factor, man. That version of Jamal, like that makes Denver a top tier title contender
Scary.
every year. If they got that version of Jamal this year, they would have been. The thing is just like, I don't think that was ever really sustainable. Like he had that run, he had the bubble run, but outside of that, he's never been that level of a
Oh.
player.
yeah, I think Joel, you mentioned
Is that not true? Is that not true, Drew?
No, I think it is true, but it's just interesting, and I'm
Okay.
taking it in. I'm receiving it.
Okay. I
Yeah,
would love you to
Joel,
receive anything
All
from
right,
me.
all right. Yeah, Joel, you made an interesting point. We haven't really got a lot of all-time great teams outside of like in the last couple years, outside of like 2017. Like, maybe if you want to dub Toronto that, I think they're more of a great team than an all-time team.
Yeah,
But
they're not all time.
23 Nuggets, 2022 Warriors, 21 Bucks,
20 Lakers.
20 Lakers. Like these are great to good teams. All time, I don't know. I think when you talk about all time, you just think of dominance from start to finish. And then you also think of who's on the roster, like using 20, because we're talking about modern and closer to our era. Using
20
20
Lakers. I'm 20 Lakers. 2000 Lakers.
I think they always get dubbed because of the way they went out in their run as all
16
time.
and 1.
You know, they had Kobe and Shaq.
That's
who were
2001.
yeah,
That's apologize.
Yeah,
That's what I meant.
2000 was they won 67 games, but they got pushed a lot harder in the playoffs. 2001, they only won
like the
56,
Lakers
but they went
definitely. Kobe and
15
Shaq
and 1 in the
definitely have an
playoffs.
all-time team, but like just talking like 2017 Warriors, like you had 4 All-Stars, 2 of the top 4 best players on the planet. You had one of the best defenses, one of the best offenses in basketball. You had Steve Kerr, who was getting put in those great coach conversations. You had good depth all around the roster. Yeah, like then you had, like you mentioned, like even like the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq, and then you had good role players to complement them, and Robert Horry and all that stuff. It's really hard to dub as the OKC as a all-time team, especially because all-time team usually you dominate, but you also play some astounding teams in your run. So it's a tough conversation. Statistically, they're probably up there for sure. And then we got to see if also they win the finals and how they win the finals. If they win it in a dominant fashion, you know, that's also something that gets added to the conversation. You know, I think of other great teams that's close to that all-time stat, like the 07 Spurs, you know, 08 Boston, 09, 010 Lakers, whichever one you want to grab. Those are teams that are close to that all-time dubbing. But when I think all-time, I think like if you're like a top 10, top 15 team all time, that's that like of all, like with all the teams combined, that's where I'll put you. I don't think OKC is there yet. Like we talking them versus Denver. Jamal did have a great young run, but that Jamal versus this defense, I'm still confident in this defense being able to guard him and being able to scheme up against him. Obviously, the Joker still had 240 balls in that playoff run, so he's still going to find a way to get his. I think
But they defended him better than anybody ever
that's a
has.
fact. But I think this Aaron Gordon now you would want more in this matchup as opposed to that one prior.
You're right.
Just because he was
Even
able
though
to
he
hit
was
so many
hurt.
big shots. And yeah, he was hurt, still able to hit so many big shots, still be effective on the
Good
defensive end, be effective on the glass. You obviously would want that Michael Porter Jr. as opposed to this one. You want that depth as opposed to this one. But I just think OKC defensively, they just would give any of these teams like Golden State 2022. They have to give them hell with that defensive mindset and the fact that they have 4 or 5 to 6 guys that's going to try to check Steph at every moment. 2024 Celtics, you know, that was a great team for sure. But realistically, defensively, OKC, I still think they can match up with them. Obviously, you had Drew Holiday shooting the piss out the ball. You had Porzingis. But there's OKC can go small, they can go big. They're still an effective team going both ways. Obviously, they're better when they have one big on the floor, but they're still a good team with 2. And then the Bucks team. Oh my God, I think OKC is a better team than that Bucks team. I think that team is just, you know, Giannis was just doing some great shit against Phoenix. Even that West, if we're just talking that West, going into that West in 2021, OKC could probably make the finals in that West going up against a Phoenix team. Or a
Probably.
team.
They'd
Yeah,
wipe
so,
that
you
one.
know,
That's the
Guaranteed.
weakest. 2021 is the weirdest playoff run that we've seen in a long time. Just way too many injuries and like a lot of good, not great teams. And it was kind of who's last standing. And Giannis was great, but that Bucks team was not great.
No.
So
By
let me
the
get this
standards of
straight,
a
Riv.
champion.
You're going with 25 OKC over 23 Nuggets.
Yes.
And Carson, now another question for you. Are you
Yes.
going with 25 OKC over 24 Celtics?
Yeah, I think that this OKC team is the best that we've seen since the peak Warriors. I think that the 2024 Celtics would be the next best. Like, I do think when you're talking about just overwhelming talent, end-to-end dominance, regular season and playoffs, the Celtics absolutely achieved that. 64 wins. I think they were top 5 in net rating, and then they only dropped 3 games in the playoffs. Obviously, with a light path and a banged-up path, but clearly a dominant team. They did that with KP only playing 5 games. I do think this OKC team has an even more dominant regular season. Absolutely. Like 68 wins, number 2 net rating all time without Chet Holmgren for 50 games. We've never seen that done. Like the 68 win club is already super exclusive. They're tied for the 5th most wins in NBA history. And basically every other team to reach that mark has had an exceptionally clean bill of health. The only team to like have a key player really miss any significant stretch was the 97 Bulls, who won 69 games, and Rodman missed like 30 games that year. So it's unprecedented to be that successful with an injury that significant in the regular season. Then you come into the playoffs. They have the best playoff net rating by a team to make the finals since the 2017 Warriors. They have the best relative playoff defensive rating since the 1971 Bucks. They're winning the turnover margin at a rate we've never seen. They're winning the transition scoring margin at a rate we've never seen. Like, they're doing historic upon historic things. They have more 30-point wins in these playoffs. They already have 4 of them than any other team has in a single postseason in league history. So to be this historically great defensively, I think there's an argument they're the best defense of the modern era. And then to have a player as great as Shea, who I think is one of the 15 best offensive players we've seen in this league in terms of peak, to have J-Dub and Chet both playing at this flat-out two-way star level now, and then to have the best depth in the league too, they just destroy teams in a way that we haven't seen anybody do since the 2017 Warriors. Last year's Celtics would be the closest thing. So I do think they're the best since those dubs. The thing is, and the reason I couldn't put them in top 10 conversations yet, I think they're in top 15, like all-time conversations, but not in that top tier, even though some of the statistical stuff would say that, is when you think about, especially if we're talking about the 2017 Dubs or the 2001 Lakers or the 96 Bulls, like those teams were all invincible throughout their runs, end to end. The Thunder looked vulnerable against the Nuggets. They still were clearly the better team. They came through, but that was like a level of shakiness that if we're holding them to like this all-time high standard, those top tier teams don't have. But once you get a tier below that into like the second tier all-time teams, then I think that they're in those conversations because they've been that great this year.
I think to me, the only thing that's holding me back, because statistically, everything you mentioned, Carson, what they did in the regular season, what they've done so far in the postseason has been insane when you look at the numbers. The only thing that's holding me back from just an eye test perspective, offensively, outside of Shea, who has been consistently dominant. Because I think J-Dub was fantastic in the WCF, but for the first 2 rounds, he was pretty inconsistent. Same thing with Chet. All those guys have been awesome offensively, defensively, but offensively, neither of them have really given you that consistent, like high-level play. Like even we saw from Jamal Murray a couple of years ago, like we saw from Anthony Davis in 2020. And I know they're not exactly built the same way. They're obviously not built the same way from those 2 teams because, especially compared to like Denver, you're just talking about defensively, just on a whole different world. But that's really the only thing stopping me from putting them into like all-time great conversation. So if they go into the finals and you get J-Dub performing how he just performed in the WCF, where he was, like 40-something% from 3 and 50% from the field, we can start having that conversation again. But I think based off what we've seen just from specifically rounds 2 and 3, because round 1 against the Grizzlies, like, yeah, they did it. But it was also like an opponent we're expecting you to wash. But going from round 2 to round 3, where Denver, they really struggled, not just going to 7 games, but from your other stars, your other all NBA level players, not showing up every single day, where we were having questions about J-Dub. We were having questions about, is this a team that can rely on J-Dub or Chet as your number 2 or number 3 options offensively, to where we are now, where J-Dub just had probably his best offensive series in any playoff series, right? Going up against Minnesota, what he was able to do, giving you a 30 ball, giving you basically 20 in every single game outside of the one blowout they had. That's the only thing stopping me right now. I think for them to get into that conversation of, some of the historic teams we're mentioning here, you dominate in the finals. Shea goes and averages he's going to average like his 32 on, 60% true shooting, just being efficient as shit. But if you're getting similar output to what we saw against Minnesota from Chet and J-Dub, on top of having that insane level defense, then they're getting put in that conversation. But if they're able to do that in the finals, I think they'll be closer to me.
Yeah, we got to see them win a championship before I can have the conversation of them being an all-time team. I think they will ultimately win a championship, although I would love to see the Knicks obviously go ahead and do it. I do think that they are the best team. I think they've been right there as the best team in basketball for obviously a great portion of this season. And albeit before the postseason started, I thought that the Celtics had the best chance to win the NBA Finals. Of course, in the West, I thought that OKC 100% was going to represent. They've been one of the best defenses I've ever seen, arguably the best defense I've seen in my lifetime. And SGA obviously being the MVP, being as dominant as he's been for a great portion of this NBA playoffs, and of course, the entirety of the regular season, he's asserting himself as an all-time great. When I look at this team, the depth that it has, the star power that it has at the top, when you get the 3-headed monster of SGA, J-Dub, and Chet clicking the way that they did in the WCF, I can understand where we enter them in conversations for one of the best we've ever seen. I think that this core can build to becoming an all-time team, because this is just the start of them being and asserting themselves as the league's best. 2-3 years down the line, we'll see J-Dub at his peak. We'll see Chet at his peak, obviously more developed offensively, understanding that as long as he stays healthy, we understand that we're looking at one of the best anchors in defense as well. And SGA is only going to get better. And as long as they're able to keep some foundational pieces in terms of the role players that they have coming off the bench, whether it be an Alex Caruso, who knows what happens with Isaiah Hartenstein, the 20,000 draft picks that they have as well to replace those role players that are inevitably going to leave due to contract situation, they are built to be a dynasty. They are built to be one of the best teams we've ever seen. This is the start of what can be one of the all-time great teams.
Yeah, because when you're talking, like you mentioned it, when you're talking about building on what they can do, and then you start talking about dynasties, you start thinking of just the big three in San Antonio, Chicago and their big three, Golden State with Steph and KD, Steph, Clay, and Draymond. And I think the difference between all of those is the amount of draft capital and the depth that they have. Like, I haven't seen a defense like this where there isn't a single mismatch on the court. Like, you can't pick out one guy and be like, all right, this is a bad defender. This is somebody we can pick on. Like, Case and Wallace can defend. Caruso can defend. Lou Dortz can defend. Chet, Hartenstein, SGA, their best player, can defend. And I think, like you mentioned it, they're probably not at that level with their big three in terms of like Tim Duncan and Tony Parker, MJ Scotty and them boys, Steph Curry and KD and them boys. But like, they're not even at their peak yet. Like, they're still like SGA's close to his peak, but the other two guys are still really young and still have time to develop. So this could be, walking into the next dynasty that we have.
I think we are. I think that's where they're headed. The one thing that I would say, Dells, I hear what you're saying about some of the offensive consistency around Shea, and I think that has to be like the one thing that you would point out with this team, right? Especially in the first two rounds when the three-point shooting was shaky. They were one of the worst efficiency three-point shooting teams, and so against the zone, like that gave them a little trouble. I don't disagree with that. But you look up and like they're still third in offensive rating in the playoffs. They were third in offensive rating in the regular season. I think part of that is Shea is just that special an offensive engine. He is that special a scorer. He demands so much defensive attention that even though he's not a conventionally elite playmaker, the reads that he has to make just aren't that complex because defenses are so willing to dedicate so much attention to him. So he does create really high shot quality for his teammates. And then the other thing that I would continue to say is like, dominating in transition by the margin they do, which is literally a margin that we've ever seen. Like, I'm not just saying that to be hyperbolic. I've looked at the numbers in the play-by-play era, at least. So since 1967, their transition margin and their turnover margin are the biggest that we've seen in the playoffs. That gives them such an insanely high floor, and that with their defense, which again is better than the field in terms of defensive rating by a margin that we haven't seen in the playoffs in more than 50 years. You can't overstate how historically great they are at those things and how that keeps them in every single game. And then it's like when J-Dub is playing well and when Chet is playing well offensively and when they're shooting well, it's not like, oh yeah, well then they're a great team. Then it's like, okay, nobody has a chance in hell. That's when they beat you by 20, 30, 35. The floor is so high and the ceiling is so high. And I think that's because they are like truly uniquely, historically great at a couple of things that sometimes we overlook. Because when we think about contenders, we always think about the half-court offense. We think about how reliable are your stars offensively. And the Thunder are so great at several things that like they can overcome being A+ at a couple of those things we conventionally look at to still be an A+ juggernaut kind of team.
In the second round, J-Dub and Chet were vulnerable. And they didn't play their best. The version of them in the conference finals is the version of them that I think it was a sneak peek into what they can be. And this year, statistically, they're an all-time great team. I think next year, if Chet's healthy, they got a chance to push past 70 wins and really break all those metrics completely and have an even more dominant playoff run. Like, I think next year, after maturing from this postseason run, I think they still hear the noise around the doubt of how good they really are. And I think them being young, they're going to be even hungrier, and they're going to keep all their pieces together. I think this team is going to be the dynasty of the 2020s. I think we've seen the dynasty in every era. We've seen it with the Lakers in the 2000s. We've seen it with the Spurs being a dynasty. We've seen it with the Warriors. And then I think we're going to see with OKC. I think OKC is going to cement themselves as one of the five when we have the Bulls, the Lakers, the Spurs, the Warriors, and I think OKC is going to cement themselves as that as well in this era.
You're talking about the 5 modern, like since the 90s.
Dynasty.
Because
Yes,
we got it.
yes.
Well, but I'm saying the Showtime Lakers are a dynasty.
The
60s
Celtics,
of course, are a dynasty. I agree. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I think that this team has a chance, and that's all I'll say. Like, I can't rule it out to be, when they are fully realized, the best team that we've seen. That 2017 Warriors bar is always going to be preposterously high, but we've never seen a team with this combination of an elite young big 3, this young, with a guy who's already at an all-time level in Shea, and then a 23-year-old Chet, who I think will be a top 10 player, and a 24-year-old J-Dub, who's already all NBA, and then have this sort of talent around them, including some really good role players on some really good contracts. And then to also have, like Riv was talking on, the richest asset pool in the league. Like you said it, Drew, this is the start, man. They won 68 games. They're probably going to roll their way to a title outside of the Denver series, roll their way. And there is so much room to grow from here. Like, that is truly scary. And we think of this as the era of parity because we've seen 7 different champions in 7 straight years. I think OKC is going to change that. I think they're that special. And I think that they're that loaded and still can grow so much.
Damn, Dells. It was supposed to be Boston, man. Hate to see it.
Injuries, man.
Hate to see
Know
it.
what they say, Riv? The window
and losing.
window's never
And
as
losing.
big.
You lost in 2022 because you couldn't guard somebody.
What'd you
You
say? The
lost
window's
that.
open until it's closed.
Window is never as big as you think it is.
Yeah.
Mm.
You've
With
had
the
3
Thunder, it might be, though.
Thunder might be the exception to the rule. Yes.
Thunder have, like, what I've been saying forever is, like, it's like the 2015 Warriors window, man. Like, when you're this great with 3 core guys this young, your window is wide open. I mean, the Warriors.
And when you have a guy that's not Tatum, like when you have a guy,
Oh wow!
you can just push.
Oh, wow.
Push
Can we not
down.
do that while he has
Today-
the torn Achilles?
He's
Today,
rebound.
I've seen on
While he
the
has the torn Achilles, let's
You know
Yeah,
me,
move
I'm
on.
Drew. I'm me no matter what. I
I
can't.
would no, Riv.
can't-
I get it. I understand where you're
can't
coming
play
from. But like,
favorites.
let's give him like a month. Let's give him like a month.
He's rehabbing.
so today.
He's doing
I don't
a
know if
foundation right now in St. Louis.
Yo,
Cut
quick
some slack.
question though, or quick statement. Do you guys ever think where the Bulls would be if the Bulls didn't absolutely ransack, fleece Scottie Pippen? Like genuinely, when you sit
Or-
back and
or-
think about it, like
Please do not disrespect Olden Polynice.
Or
That was a fair trade.
Or if Rensdorf didn't want to not bring back Phil Jackson.
I mean, unbelievable. I
Because
sit
who went
and
to the
think
finals? The
7
Knicks in
years.
'99.
He got a 7-year,
Yeah, that
what,
shit was big.
$15 million,
You-
14.
Here's what I'll say, Drew. Like, absolutely. It's hard to start a dynasty without getting really lucky in some way. You pick Draymond Green 35th. You get Steph on an incredibly cheap rookie extension
1000%.
because of his ankle stuff, because he hadn't had the accolades up to that point in his career. This case, you trade for SGA. And most people in the league at the time think the Clippers win that trade. You get J-Dub in the late lottery. You get Chet as the second pick. You get those guys in the same draft. Like, obviously, that's elite general manager work by Sam Presti, who's probably the best GM of my lifetime. Just like his ability to put together multiple elite cores is incredible. But you also
Jerry?
have to get lucky.
Jerry?
Who's the Spurs GM, if I remember correctly? Who's
Well, it was Pop for a time, and it was what's his face?
whoever was the guy from '99 to 2012.
I guess, is Jerry West not our generation?
Jerry's
though?
great. Jerry's great, but it's also like you're kind of on roids when you're the Lakers GM, man. I don't know. It's like if you're doing it for OKC, you're kind of doing it with your hands tied behind your back. And
Am
this
I
guy has
crazy or
drafted
Jerry
Kevin
also was
Durant
the
and
GM
James Harden,
for
the
Clippers.
Grizzlies and the Clippers.
the Spurs GM was RC Buford.
RC Buford, thank you. I don't know how I
He was
forgot
a
his name.
dude. That's 20
No,
years
he's
of
great.
straight success. Like, bow.
Yeah, I think there
For
is there's a lot of luck involved. Have you guys seen the conversation that's going on the internet with how many players could you replace Shea with, and OKC would still win the title this year?
You're doing that to him now.
Lame.
Jeremy Grant on the list.
Well, the player that is on the list Jeremy Grant for the Celtics, hey, last year.
Fucking idiot.
Oh
If you
my
don't think
God.
Luka could get past Jeremy Grant, we got some bigger issues, brother. We got some
Well,
much
you
bigger
talk
issues.
so highly of Jalen Brown.
Look.
But the name that popped up the most was Chris Paul.
Prime
That's a good
Chris
call.
Paul.
But my
Like,
honest my take
Yeah.
is, bro, there's really not many. Like the difference in this offense with Shea on the floor versus off it all year, you're talking about like, early in the year, it was like a 20-point swing when Shea was out there without J-Dub compared to when J-Dub was out there without Shea.
I could see it with Chris Paul, though.
Oh, Chris Paul, I
it.
agree. It's because CP3 is one of those. He's one of those, top 20 offensive players ever. But it has to be a guard who's that great offensively.
I feel like Shea, he's on an all-time defense, and they're like, oh, the defense is carrying this, and that's why they're making the finals, going to win it. I think it's undervaluing what Shea has done, because the name that also popped up was James Harden, and
playoff dropper.
I just think about James Harden in the second round matchup with Denver being down 2-1 and outdueling Jokic the remainder of that series to win that series. I just have a hard time realizing that. Like Chris Paul, I can maybe get myself behind it, but I think we forget how much adversity OKC did face in that Denver series and how phenomenal Shea had to be to close out that series.
People doubted him. I just can't believe that was a reality.
Yo, Drew, talk to him, yo. Like, you was there.
No, Riv, I promise you,
Riv.
I'm saving all of this pent-up energy for when I see you in person.
You was there.
You was there, bro. In person, and we sit down to preview the NBA Finals.
You was there, bro.
I was shocked,
will see me. You will hear me.
I'm picking OKC.
Drew,
no,
I gotta say,
WCF, brother.
That does not matter to me, brother. And
Brother,
I'll tell you this:
I overrated Minnesota.
You and I.
Wait, Drew, you know what, Drew?
We
Drew,
together. And
Drew, can I get in on this, please? For all the Hallie stuff, can I get in on this OKC glaze? Because I want to bond with you over
I want to understand what it is.
I want to make
Carson,
amends.
and what actually has me as pent up as I am.
We're gonna start
as
let it blow.
As heated as I am.
Please.
Because it's really funny because something similar happened on the opposite side of the other sport, talking about football, where I was with the Eagles all season long. And right before the big game, I go and I'm like, I just can't pick against the Chiefs. And what did this guy do? He goes and says, Dels, thanks for walking with me. So I'm going to do the same thing because it was Riv and I on the same side with OKC
Carson.
For the past 2 years.
He's lying.
And right before the playoffs started, right before the going got tough, what did Riv do? I don't know. I'm just going to trust him. My eyes have told me, and that's that I can't trust Oklahoma City, who has been the best defense in basketball. I think that Minnesota is the worst matchup for Oklahoma City. They've played them the toughest. I just wanted to keep the same energy that you showed me, even though I was with you the whole way. But that's fine.
Yeah.
He's lying.
Walk together.
Well, Riv, I did see the graphic. I know you picked Minnesota.
No, he's not lying about that part. I'm not saying he's lying about that
I didn't lie, not one bit. And
we were in the minority.
No, he's lying.
That was insane.
I'm gonna tell you why he's lying. First of all, you don't make mistakes. And I made a mistake overrating Minnesota. And that's fine by me. I'm a man that always admits when I'm wrong, and I never waver. I'm going to say what I say, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But he's lying because I stopped being a fan of OKC a while before the playoffs. That is a fact.
That's like a month. It was a month.
No. It was way before that. I've been stopped being a fan. I was like,
were they in your tweet this year?
No, I think I took him out. Or
if I probably were.
If I did take him out, it was like in the middle of the season because Carson, I came to a realization. I was watching OKC one night, and I was like, yo, outside SJ, I don't really like nobody on this roster. Like, I ain't really a fan of nobody on this roster. So why be a fan? And I cut my list. My list is like 5-6 teams. OKC is not one of them. I've been left. That's
You're a fan of Detroit because of one player.
You're a liar. I hate liars.
Who?
Lie again on my name. Lie again. Joel, let him know. Joel, let him know, man. Let him know.
A sore.
Jalen Duren, I'm going to throw the fuck up.
I wasn't a Jalen Duren fan.
You've until 2025 started, you said he was a terrorist.
Drew,
you have shot him constantly.
Drew, genuine question. Who's the biggest Ivy fan on the show?
Whoa.
Who's the biggest Ivy fan on the show?
Ivy fans exist.
Let's be serious. Conversations.
Jaden, where have you been on your
He's been a fan of Jaden Ivey. He's a fan of like 3 Pistons players.
Thank you, Joel. Why they keep trying to lie on my name?
I'm sad you left the
That's
Thunder,
interesting,
though,
Joel. I didn't hear you talk not one bit when I was asking you to vouch. But when he goes and, he's a fan of Jaden. He's
been with
me. He asked me. What question did you ask me?
He's a fan of Duren?
Not a Dern.
No, Duren.
Ivy, Asar, and Cade.
I was there before Cade. I was there with
You were.
Sadiq fucking Bay.
You were-
Brother,
That's
I've
honorable.
been there. And yo, Carson.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about Drew, man?
Tell
When
me.
the Lakers got their ass whipped, when they got fucked on, when they got belt to ass, I didn't say a word. I didn't sit there and be an asshole and was like, yo, Drew, you're Lakers, bro. I just
But you're
like,
gonna shit on Tatum with the torn Achilles.
I was just
instead.
like, bro, even when whoa, another thing. When Dell's Celtics kept butt fucking and getting choking leads, I didn't make fun of Dell's. I didn't do that.
Yeah, you had no leg to stand on because all your teams got absolutely bow.
Who got bow? I mean,
The Cavaliers got
Cavs,
bow,
Warriors.
bow.
Warriors, Steph got hurt.
Pistons.
I'm good off that.
And what
I'm
about
good.
the Rockets?
Everybody.
Rockets, they lost in 7. They actually put up a better
double-edged
fight.
sword for you. Either which way you
That's
were
true.
going
You
to
couldn't
work.
lose that one.
The one team that got the worst belt to ass was your team, bro.
And say it,
Fact.
say it. Oh God, I want to hear it. Who?
The worst team that got belt to ass was your team.
No. The worst team that got belt to ass was your Memphis Grizzlies, your Western
they were
Conference
supposed to get
Final
that.
team.
Your
They were supposed
Western
to get that.
Conference.
Ja got hurt.
Oh,
Ja got hurt. Ja got hurt.
Wait,
Carson,
No,
answer this
yeah,
question.
Carson.
Dell's,
Bad segment.
I want
Bad
y'all to
segment.
be objective. Carson, Dell's, Joel, be objective.
Okay.
Them 2 games in Memphis. Them 2 games in Memphis.
I'm crying.
Them 2 games in Memphis. Was those not more competitive than most of the games in the Lakers and Minnesota series?
Yeah, Lakers, Minnesota.
Well,
couple good,
they
couple
lost
good
the
games.
first by 50, and they were down by 25 in the first half of game 2.
I said in Memphis. You talking about shit that
I
don't matter
know.
to me.
Those
Games
games are
OKC
competitive.
don't matter to me. You know why they don't matter to me? Because they didn't happen in my mind. So they don't matter to me.
That's a pretty good
Why are
point.
you telling me about
I can't
those
argue
games?
with that. I can't
You know
argue
what
with
I'm
that.
saying? And I
And honestly,
picked
that's on me.
I picked OKC.
I missed that
thank
entire
God.
Yo,
series.
you need Jesus Christ.
I picked
There's
OKC.
a path. Yo, Dels, there's a path.
Yeah, the path shit lost me. There was no path for.
And then,
Memphis
and you listen, Dels, Boston was supposed to go back to the finals. There's
hurt.
the
He's
path.
moving
They
nasty.
lost.
Dels,
Shit,
he's
shit,
moving
it's life,
nasty right
bro.
now.
It's life. Everything happens for a reason. I was supposed to be wrong. That's all that means.
No,
That's
you
all
was
that
wrong
matters.
because there was a bad take.
We'll have bad takes. You said Luka was fatigued. Listen,
He
shit, life.
might have been. Shit.
Look, it's life.
He's
It's
looking
life.
good right now, Rip. Maybe he realized.
Well, he's at
Nah, I
at
just
games.
want y'all to
watching.
keep that same energy. Y'all not on this ride with me and Joel
yeah.
next
Whoa,
season when it
whoa,
comes
whoa,
to
I
whoa,
Luka. I'm
promise you,
just
I do not
saying.
want to be on
Keep that
any
energy.
ride that involves the
I'm
Los
good off
Angeles
the
Lakers.
Luka ride, bro. I'm good off that.
Well, we've already established that Dell's season next year is pretty much over.
He's
Oh, it's
cooked.
cooked.
Who he gonna watch?
No,
Portland.
Dels
I might
is
not watch
huge next
basketball.
season. The Rockets, big
We're
men
watching
vibes,
the men.
Big Shaden vibes,
Big
and
Shaden vibes.
big Stephon Castle vibes.
No.
Here we
He's
go.
up in Spurs land.
Okay.
No, because I asked him a week or two ago
Dallas.
about
Cooper
Stephon
Flag,
Castle.
come on.
I was like, yo, bro,
facts.
you
He's
your
cooking.
5?
Dallas,
Yeah, nah.
Dallas.
He got to get back. He got to get back. He got some work to do. Everything
He
else
got
matters.
Dallas. Dell's got Dallas for sure. He was taking Cooper Flag over Wemby.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
He was.
Okay,
over
so
Luka.
fellas, we're gonna end off the show with each of us giving 2 biggest question marks about this upcoming NFL season.
Because I'm hyped up right now. Let me just keep on rolling. I'm sure everybody loves hearing my voice. My question, 2. 1 bias, 1 not bias. 1 not bias. Will the departures of the Eagles affect their chances at a repeat? Because I still believe that this is an amazing team. I still think that they should be one of the heavy favorites to go ahead and still contend for a title. But do their departures hurt their chances to go ahead and do that? My question for the Broncos is are our moves around the margins enough to make us a legitimate threat to compete for the AFC West title? Because Hufanga was a great add to our secondary. Dre Greenlaw at that contract price, you could argue, was the best free agent signing. And then we go in the draft, we bring in Pat Bryant, we bring in RJ Harvey as our skill position players. Is that enough to get over the hump and continue to trend us in the right direction of being a legitimate playoff team and a legitimate threat?
I'll go next because I can answer your first dumbass question with the easy we're repeating, brother. I don't know. Listen, stand with us or don't stand with us. You know how you get a little fidgety with us. A lot of dudes we lost. I'm not
You
worried
get
about
fidgety
that.
with the main reason you guys won. Stop.
Listen, we're trading Bryce Huff. He's gone. Useless.
W.
He has a ring though.
He's
He's on
gonna
the
eat.
Niners now. He's going
gonna
back to
eat with
Robert
Saleh.
Saleh.
Yo,
Yeah,
he has a
up.
ring. We gave him a ring and we traded him. That's
The
the best thing that
49ers sneakily have had a
It's like
really
Topic
good
getting a ring
offseason.
this year.
Yeah, no, listen,
Shout out
Topic's got a
Topic.
ring. Shout out to him. Hey, I got two questions. First question is for the Chicago Bears. When are you winning an offseason is actually going to translate to the regular season?
W question.
Won a ton of off seasons, A+. They won the draft. They won free agency. They won the trades, but they haven't quite had a season where they put it together. I'm excited to watch NFC North football. You got Green Bay, probably the worst team in the bunch, but they're still a solid team.
The
but
worst
you got-
team in the bunch?
Yo, let me talk. You got
Oh my
Minnesota.
goodness.
Minnesota's a great team. And then you got Detroit, who's, like Drew's mentioned, might win the division for a third year, which he who would have had
Joel's biggest nightmare.
a 3-year stretch of a take that he made 3 years ago. It may come true. Chicago's in a tough position because you're in probably the toughest division. On top of that, all those organizations are run pretty well for the most part. And you are probably the one organization that's had its up and downs. But you have Caleb Williams. You know, are you going to get quality production from DJ Moore? He is back in my eyes. I called him the other day. Roma Dunze, you know, what is he going to do in year two? That defense was good last year for the most part. The year before, they had a strong end of the year. How are they going to look this year? How are your rookies going to look? So for me, Chicago, is it going to translate this year? Is that going to be the vibe this year going in? And then question number 2, man. Is Cincinnati going to get back to the playoffs? I mean, this is are they going to be consistent? This is a team that unfortunately doesn't have the best organization. And I think that's what's led, and of course, injuries to Joe Burrow and stuff, but that's what's led to inconsistencies with them making the playoffs, not making the playoffs. When they're healthy, they can really give teams hell, but they haven't been always healthy. Their offensive line is banged up. Their defense hasn't been great. You know, they have to pay these guys. Guys are leaving and stuff like that. They have 4 superstars, I would say. You know, you got T. Higgins, who's probably like a low-end star, whatever it is. You got Trey Henderson, who's a defensive star. And then you got Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Outside of that, everything in the roster is still trying to figure out its phase. You know, Chase Brown, solid running back. Wouldn't say star. Wouldn't say star.
Fantasy star.
Talking about star. Fantasy star,
superstar.
probably. And I guess my third question, and this one, it really, I want to ask.
Bonus question.
Third question. The Dallas Cowboys, are they ever going to act like America's team?
That's a big question.
Ones, man.
That's a big question.
Act like America's team? Because I feel like what we've seen, Carson, I don't know what year you were born, but me and my brethren, we
2013.
Godly. We were born 1998, 1999. So in our lifetime, we have seen from the NFC East, Giants win, Eagles win. Now we're seeing Washington, you know, make some moves, be a competitive team. When is Dallas, the Cowboys, going to be America's team and finally take their place atop the NFCs where people act like they should be? You know, obviously not me. I think they're dog shit. But where people act like they should be, when are they ever going to get back to that top spot? You have CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the best receivers in football. Some people took Michael Pittman Jr. over him. You have Dak Prescott, who's a top 10, top 12 quarterback. You have Michael Parsons, who's one of the 5 best defensive players in football. Fill out the roster. They draft well for the most part. I think last 5-6 years, they draft well. It's about just them winning on the margins, getting a good coach. They got some guy, I can't pronounce his name. Coach
Schottenheimer.
Rashala. What you said?
Schottenheimer.
Schottenheimer. See how he does. Yeah. Those are my
man.
You know, I think the points you mentioned about the Bengals is an overarching question I had that revolves around Joe Burrow. Is I think that this could be the start of the player empowerment movement in the NFL. If the Bengals miss the playoffs for another year, I think Joe Burrow is going to request a trade out of Cincinnati. You look at how bad this organization has functioned. They drafted Shamar Stewart in the first round. All first-round picks are structured contracts, which means that there's not much thinking involved in the negotiation process. It's basically a sign and you're on the practice field. Shamar Stewart has not signed his contract yet. And that is in large part because of maybe the Bengals wanting to change things around and be cheap. So their first round pick hasn't been on the practice field yet. Trey Hendrickson is not appearing to OTAs because he hasn't gotten an extension yet. Those are their two defensive players that they're counting a lot on, specifically Trey Hendrickson, to be serviceable on their defensive line this upcoming season. We saw Joe Burrow have an MVP-like year last year. If he has another MVP-like season this year and they miss the playoffs because their defense is once again horrible, their offensive line has not gotten better since he's gone to Cincinnati. It's once again horrible. I think at that point, Joe Burrow starts to seriously consider taking his career into his own hands and getting out of Cincinnati. And I think he can spark the player empowerment movement in the NFL, where we see a lot of quarterbacks, sometimes they are failed by their organizations and they ask out. Right now, we see that the three top quarterbacks, the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks in the league right now. I'm looking at Mahomes, great organization. I'm looking at Josh Allen, great organization. I'm looking at Lamar Jackson, great organization. Joe Burrow is the only one that is in a completely awful organization, and it's limiting his ability to win at the highest level.
I do appreciate the Bills getting promoted to great organization.
We're here,
I don't know,
Carson.
that feels a little generous. Brandon Beane is great. Sean McDermott's
He's good.
mid.
Strong mid.
Good.
Nothing
Good.
wrong with strong mid.
It's good. He's good.
I'd like to move on from mid for Josh Allen's sake. Do you guys want to hear my two big questions?
Do I want to hear
How
him?
much help does he need? Yeah. All right. Here they are. Number one, I actually have another question about an NFC North team. Riv was asking about the Bears and their offseason. I'm very, very interested in the Vikings this season and how much they can replicate last year's success. Because obviously, surprising 14-win campaign. Weren't expecting the Darnold year, but they're an extremely talented football team. They're an extremely well-coached football team, and they're loaded on both sides of the ball. And defensively, like, even got more loaded this offseason. They bring in Javon Hargrave. They bring in Jonathan Allen. So obviously, like, the X factor and really the question with this team is just how ready is JJ McCarthy to step into this system and produce. There's not an easier situation probably with Kevin O'Connell, with a good offensive line in front of him, and with these weapons that he could step into. But it is always a challenge to ask, like, effectively a rookie quarterback, a guy who is going to be healthy for the first time and starting for the first time to carry a team back to contention. So I'm very interested in that. And then the other team, I feel like this has kind of been a major story of the entire offseason, is what do we get out of the Kansas City Chiefs this year? Like, Drew, you're asking if the Broncos have done enough to win the division. I wouldn't pick it, but I could not rule out that possibility. I just think you took what was up there for the best defense in football and then somehow got like a good bit better. That alone makes you a better football team than last year. And with Kansas City, like, obviously Kelsey has regressed and you lose Joe Thuney, which is really significant. I just think you look at the whole offensive line outside of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and it's pretty shaky, and you lose Justin Reed defensively. So this has kind of become a routine of like every offseason questioning, oh, can the Chiefs replicate their success? Will they be back in the mix? And up to this point, every year they have, because you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, you have Steve Spagnuolo, you have Chris Jones, you have Trent McDuffie. They just have elite talent at key positions who anchor both sides of the ball, and then they have the best coaching staff in football. And I do think that actually the receiving core could be pretty nasty this year. Like, obviously, Kelsey's regression is significant, but you get Rashee Rice healthy again. You get another year of development for Xavier Worthy. Ultimately, like, I do think that they should win the division, but this is the most vulnerable they've been. And I do think in that AFC hierarchy, they've fallen behind Buffalo and Baltimore for me. And so they're the lowest they've been in that hierarchy, at least.
Yeah, remember my power rankings a couple months ago don't seem too crazy now, huh?
Who made the
fellas?
Super Bowl?
Yeah, I know. My question though, my number one question is similar to what Drew you mentioned, what Carson mentioned, but someone going to dethrone the Chiefs in the AFC, not just the Broncos, but will Lamar or Josh Allen finally have their moment against the Chiefs where they could get past them and they can reach their first Super Bowl? Because that's the last thing we're missing from both of those quarterbacks. They both got their MVPs. One maybe not as deserving as the other, but they both got their MVPs.
Somebody has to be a great playoff performer. Somebody has to be a great
yeah. Lamar Jackson, number one paper play these playoffs. Number one.
Yo, it's about time. It's about time. It's about time. He's played great. Like, we've been waiting. It's
Yeah,
about
I mean, Josh Allen is only number 1 all time in total yards per game in the playoffs,
Oh,
number
good
1
for
all
him.
time in total
Yeah,
touchdowns
good
per
for
game in the
him.
playoffs, number
Yeah.
1 all time in touchdown to turnover ratio,
And
number
neither
one
of them
all-time
have
in
a Super
touchdown
Bowl
interception
appearance.
ratio.
So I
Talk
don't
that
really give a
tea.
shit.
What them young
No,
kids say
listen,
now?
listen.
Talk
I'm
that
just
tea.
taking notes. I'm just taking notes of who can mention 2 great quarterbacks without taking a shot at the other one. Because it looks like it's me, and
I
it looks
wasn't
like
a
it's not
shot.
you.
You, I could have been talking about Lamar. You just took
Talk
it as
about
But I
shots.
knew you
Jets.
weren't. No, but I knew you weren't.
That Dell's KC question, Dell's just looked at his notebook notes from last year and just got that question from last year.
I'm wondering. I'm just
That's
wondering.
a recycled
hope so.
question.
I hope
Nobody
so.
could beat
Josh
them,
Allen-
buddy.
I love watching Josh
Joel,
Allen
we
play.
can.
He's one of my
Joel,
favorite
we can.
quarterbacks.
In the
He's
AFC.
not one of your favorite
Oh,
quarterbacks.
cooked.
I do have a couple other questions though. We talked a lot about the NFC North, but I'm really interested to see how the Lions look without Ben Johnson, because I think over the last couple of seasons we've been waiting to see when he finally makes that leap to head coach. Not only does what he look like in Chicago, but how do the Lions bounce back? Because we know the offense is stacked. The offensive line is elite. You have multiple weapons. Jamison Williams, he's getting a ton of hype from the coaching staff after having a breakout year last year. You got the running backs, you got everything there. How much did Ben Johnson really mean to this offense? Will it still be one of the 2 or 3 best in football, or do they drop off to like the 10th best offense? Another question I have: every draft class, right, specifically quarterbacks, there's always going to be busts, right? Like when you go back to the history, like even the Trevor Lawrence draft, when we're like, oh my God, there's Trevor Lawrence and Zach and Fields and all of these great guys, like they're all going to be
Busts on
fantastic.
busts.
And there's
Trey
like
Lance.
maybe Trevor Lawrence is going to be great, and we're still not sure. The 2024 draft class, will that be the first class we look at in some time and say, there's no bust? Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael
Say his
Penix,
name.
JJ McCarthy. I think how all those quarterbacks stand currently right now, all the teams feel fantastic about them. Of course, McCarthy hasn't played. Penix played a handful of games. But I think everyone else, you feel really strong about where you stand with your quarterback. And the last one, man, is this the time? Did they finally get it right? Is Aaron Glenn the answer the Jets have been searching
Let it
for to
go.
get them back to the promised land? Let's do it.
Let it go, bro.
I have a last question for you guys, and it's interactive. And that's
Yo,
why I
your
saved it for
Celtics and
last.
Jets are going to be shit this year. Oh my God.
The Celtics will make the playoffs at least.
You're hoping.
We've
Playing
seen
They're not going to be a top 6 seed.
They will,
Playing
they will.
team.
Yo, Atlanta's better than you
Maybe.
guys.
Come on.
Atlanta who?
The
Hawks.
Hawks, like, no Jason Tatum, they're better than you guys.
In back-to-back seasons, we've seen 2 teams take major leaps in a conference: the Texans and then the Commanders. So my question is, who will be next season's Commanders? And I have a list of candidates, and you tell me out of 1 to 10, 10 being they could be this year's Commanders, where you would rank them on that scale.
Do it.
The first team, the Carolina Panthers.
Drew. I was a
8.5.
year too fucking early.
8.5.
10,000, nigga. This is it right here. Panthers, 10.
The bias in me goes 8.5. The real one in me goes a strong 6.
Bias and non-bias, same thing for me, 10.
I'm not as
The
high on
division
the
makes
Panthers
it
as you guys,
easier.
I guess. That's true.
The
It's a
division
division.
being just
And
dog shit.
also,
But it's the Bucks. The Bucks have won
Glorious
the division
Prince.
for
that
Yeah, but the
cutie
Bucks aren't
patootie.
5 years now.
powerhouse.
Didn't
You
they
know
just
him better
like-
than
the
I
Bucks
do.
are way
right?
better than the Panthers, I
That
think.
They
cutie
just won, like,
better than
8 or 9
sure.
games.
Bryce Young.
But they're not like the Eagles. I mean, they're not the Lions. They're a good team, but they're beatable. That defense was terrible
The
last
Bucks are
year.
good.
Lost Liam Cohen.
Bucks are
It's
damn
a 6
good.
for me. It's a 6 for me.
I'm locked in, man.
I don't really see the ceiling of like the Commanders last year. Were you talking about getting to a conference title game? I don't see
Oh, I
that.
thought he
I'm
just
thinking
meant
more
a
regular
team that's gonna make
season.
a leap.
Just like
Just
can they
like
win
going
10
up
They
to
make the
10, 11
playoffs.
wins.
Yes,
Yeah,
they make the
that sounds
playoffs. They could win a playoff game. For me, how I
Nah.
feel about the Panthers, I'd go like 4.
Yeah, I feel like I would be right there. I feel like I'd be 4, maybe even 3.
Next year, y'all gonna look at me like a
Just be
genius.
careful if Bryce Young takes that leap.
I would
Next
love it, bro.
team.
He's so whimsical. I love him.
So
Next
cute.
team, the Chicago Bears.
11.
This is a 9.
9.
Hold on, fellas. Here's what we have to consider. The division. It's the
Oh,
hardest
shit,
division in
you're right,
football.
yeah.
Like, can
5.
they win 10, 11
Caleb
games?
was
It's gonna be
awesome
really hard.
against the division last year. To be fair, the team wasn't great, but you think you're getting a big upgrade at head coach. You got a big upgrade on the offensive line.
Yeah.
I think they could make the
can DJ Moore
playoffs.
bounce
Win
back?
division. I don't know about winning division.
I
I
think
don't know if
they're
win the
like
division,
No, they're
but they
not.
win 10 games.
they're between a 6 and a 7 because I do think that they're significantly improved. I do believe in Caleb a lot. I love what they did on the offensive line. I love Ben Johnson. All that is great. And still, I'm like, you're not better than the Lions. I don't think you're better than the Vikings or the Packers. Like, I think they still are probably 4th in the division, even though, like, if they don't win 9 games, I'll be disappointed. So the talent is there, but just because of that schedule, I'll put them at like a 6.5.
Carson, you got to understand these are really taking shots. Nobody saw the Texans being great.
For sure.
Nobody saw the Commanders being great. Realistically, the list of teams that he's going to say, they're probably all right now where we stand.
There's one who I'm ready to go with a higher number for.
I know which one it is too.
Give me the Jets.
I'm gonna go at 7.
I'm at a
for
7.
the Bears. I think I'm at a 7. The Raiders.
3.
I'd go 5.
I like Chargers over them. I like Broncos over them. I like
Division
the
again.
comfortably.
I'm going 4 or 5.
Not this year. Next year, I'm
Gino
in
is obviously an upgrade. Genty's going to be awesome. Brock Bowers year 2. Turn me up. That's going to be a movie. Defense still has its ways to go, but the offense is going to be fun.
Yeah, they just have the worst quarterback, worst head coach in the division, which I guess you could have made the same
Bo
argument
Nick's
for
better
Chicago.
than Gino?
Oh,
Wait,
that's
yeah,
fair.
no.
My bad,
yeah.
my bad. Third best quarterback in the division, worst head coach in the division.
And definitely the worst defense in the division.
Yes.
Like,
Defense.
it's just a hard ass division. So I would say similar thing. Like I like what they did. I don't like what they did as much as the Bears. I love Gino. I think Genty's going to be really fun in that offense, but just not a great roster, pretty mediocre roster. So I'll say, I don't know, 3.
The team that traded to the 2nd overall pick to get their guy, the Jaguars.
I can see some happening here. I'm at like a 6 or a 7, truthfully.
I'm at a 4 because I comfortably believe Houston will win division again.
I think that defense still has its ways to go. I will say this offense with Liam Cohen excites the hell out of me. I'm excited for Tank Bigsby this season. I'm interested to see how they do bring in ETN and how he's going to be used in this offense, as we did see Rashad White have a bit of a rejuvenation this year. And, of course, Bucky Irving be really talented last season and give them the boost they needed on that side. I think the run game is going to be huge for Trevor Lawrence as well. And on top of the fact, they did just bring in Travis Hunter opposite side of one of the premier young wide receivers in the game in BTJ. I'm excited for this team.
I am too. I kind of like a 7 here just because I think the opportunity is there within the division. I respect the Texans. They're the favorite, but it's not like you're going up against multiple, like 3 really strong teams. I am still a T-Law believer, and if he doesn't get it done with Liam Cohen and with this receiving core, then we're having real conversations. But I'm an optimist that they will. I think that this defense is talented. This front defensively is certainly very talented.
Line's legit.
I like a good year for the Jags this year. It's been a lot of disappointment, but this feels like a good year for them.
Texans run this shit, man.
I'm at
it's not a steady ship. It's a ship that could sink at any moment. That offensive line might be
Jets,
worst in the league.
Jets, how many division wins in the last 10
Okay, you're claiming the Texans. I'll claim the Ravens. Sure.
You do claim the Ravens. What the fuck? That's
okay, but why are you claiming the Jets? Like the Texans are your number 1 team.
Texans are my 3rd team. Pick a 3rd team right now.
I don't have a 3rd team. I have the Jets and the Ravens. I guess the Eagles.
No. Let's stop.
I'm at an 8 with the Jaguars.
Love that.
I think that they could realistically compete for the division, and I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a bounce back year. I really love Liam Cohen's offense.
You know why I disagree on the sinking ship dumbass point you just made? That I just got mad because their defense is legit. Like
it's stupid elite. Stupid elite.
Shit.
Well, the Texans are essentially the Bengals, but with an elite defense.
Respect CJ Stroud. But yes.
What do you mean?
You're saying
No,
they're the
he is
opposite of the
respecting
Bengals.
No, that's literally what he just did.
Stroud.
What he just did was respect the fuck out
No,
of
they're the
CJ
opposite
Stroud.
of the Bengals.
You
Their
get me,
defense is
Drew.
elite.
Drew, you get me. You get
Nah,
me,
Their
Drew.
elite.
offense, I don't know. Their offense, they're going to have maybe the worst offensive line in the sport.
Probably.
They're relying on multiple rookies at wide receiver.
Yes,
Don't
Bills,
make
you
sense.
didn't listen. You didn't listen. I
First-time
said the
offensive play
Texans
caller.
are the Bengals with an elite defense.
Joel,
They have an elite defense. The receivers with Nico, with Jalen Noel and Jaden
Christian Kirk.
Higgins,
Christian Kirk.
those two, Christian Kirk's there too. Those 2 Iowa State receivers are really damn good. I'm just letting you know right now.
I'm with you. I'm
Okay.
Joel.
Jalen Noel specifically, he is electric. He's
We
an
gotta
electric
wait
player.
till he plays, of course.
But
Because
no, I know he's gonna be a good player. I know
Joel,
he's
we
gonna
play
be a
college
Jalen Polk
football.
was
You know.
supposed to be like that and wasn't.
Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, those 2 guys are really good. And the Texans are essentially building out the receiver core, and their offensive line is bad. Yeah, that's what the Bengals are.
First-time play caller, inefficient run game.
Hey, listen, last year was
That's what the
Bengals.
Bengals are.
You know?
I know, but yes, they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like, shout out to C.J. Stroud. He's not close to Burrow.
And
Yeah, but then you also have Nico. Nico's one of the top 10 receivers in the league.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as they're on the field,
I
they're
mean,
going to
Joel,
do it.
I don't got to tell you, if the Bengals had the Texans defense, they would win 14 games.
If
I
they,
will say-
if they had the Texans defense, they'd be my Super Bowl pick.
That's a
Easily.
fact. But the Texans can't forget first 7 weeks.
But that's why I
Eddie
don't.
Jalen-
That's why I don't think the Texans are just gonna fall off.
I
'Cause
don't think
think
so
they're gonna fall
either.
off.
the defense is too good to just.
I agree
Their
with that.
defense could win them
Also,
games.
Dallas, they dealt with a lot of injuries last year to the wide receivers. It really was just
They did.
nobody out there.
No, absolutely.
The next team that had the first overall pick, the Tennessee Titans.
0.
I'm at
One.
like a 2,
One.
Yeah.
and then this will be the one.
It
They're
has to be.
going to the
They're
Super
gonna do it.
Bowl.
Yeah, they're
I'm
gonna
at
win
a
10
I'm at a
games.
like at a 3-4. Cam Ward, I'm really high on. I love Cam Ward. I
He
think
needs
he's
some
very
more help
talented.
before I can
I
get
think
too
You
he's a
also,
leader.
loved Will Levis at one point. Can never forget.
Yeah, I love Cam Ward even
Will
more.
Levis over Brock Purdy, you told me.
Jordan
Hey,
Love.
listen, same system. You have no idea.
Enough.
For a touchdown debut, it was special. You never see
I'll
it
that's
never
before.
just
forget.
nuts.
Joel, never forget. That game was lit.
For a touchdown debut.
You and these one-hit wonders, man. Zach Wilson, Will Levis.
Yeah.
Like,
Will Levis sucks.
Yo, shout out for giving Zach a 1 year there. Shout out.
No, he said one hit. He said one hit wonder.
My
One
bad.
game.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Now,
thought-
this last team, I say the best for last, the New England Patriots.
I'm
at
at
a
a
10.
9.
I'm at a
They
10
have-
for them.
I have the most confidence in them.
I think
Yeah.
I'm the most confident in them making the playoffs this year.
Can I ask why not a mention of the Browns?
Why would I
They're
mention that?
starting.
Why
Joe
not a mention
Flacco,
of the
maybe?
Cardinals?
No, I don't
Because the
think
Cardinals
they're going to start Joe
won
Flacco.
8 games last year.
Shador.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
There's a chance Shador starts off the
There's
rip.
a decent chance.
I
There's
use
a 10.
teams that won 4 games or less.
Oh,
It's
okay.
pretty much across
This is
the
just
board.
New England to make the playoffs. Like, not win the division.
Chicago might have been the one that had the most wins at 5 that I used.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because I think Cleveland's defense can be rejuvenated this year. I think that offensively, of course, that's really the question.
Jerry Jeudy, man.
But
Number one.
they've got some
Cedric
pieces in
Tillman.
Joku. You mentioned Jerry. The running back
Deontay.
situation, they just brought in Judkins and they just brought in Sampson. Maybe Shador gets an opportunity to start. And then
What if they
that's a
start
team
Dylan
that at least
Gabriel?
was worth mentioning to get a number. That's all I'm going to say. As for the Patriots, no doubt about it, this is a 9 or a 10. They're going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm at a 7. 7.
Oh.
Cool 7.
I think that this is the best of all the ones that Joel has laid out. I think that they check some key boxes. There's opportunity within the division, not against the Buffalo Bills. We're going to cruise to 13, 14 wins. But
They play
We're
you
here.
guys well.
Carson.
Yeah.
We're here.
yeah, we're
This
so
shit-
here. We're so
This
here.
shit-
We're
this
so
shit
here.
easy. Walk in the
We're so
park.
here. But
Walk in the park.
they are going to definitely find some wins against the Dolphins and the Jets. Overall,
They're lucky.
okay. But also huge box for them to check. I think that Drake May is going to be absolutely nasty this year. I think that he's so talented, and I think that he was able to produce at an impressive level with unquestionably the worst combination of offensive line play and skill position talent in football. Like at
And
the very
coaching.
least, bottom 3. Yeah. Like all around terrible situation. And still you're like, holy shit, this guy has the juice. So, I think that Diggs has taken a step back, and obviously now he's coming off of an injury, but I
And a
still think
boat.
he's true and a boat, but easily the best
He's been on some
receiver
freak
that
shit lately.
he his personal life is his business. But the offensive situation, you draft Will Campbell, that's all a lot better. Defensively, obviously they added more talent this offseason. I think that they checked all the right boxes, and I would be surprised if they didn't win at least like 9 games this year. I think they should be in the playoffs.
They leapfrogged Miami this offseason.
Absolutely.
It's not hard.
They leapfrogged.
It's not
them.
hard. That's
Yo,
true.
Joel, you didn't mention the Jets.
Let's be real, bro.
Sneaky in the hunt team.
Yo, Nels, you so funny. Y'all,
Ah.
y'all like opposite
Listen,
ends of the Jets.
Justin Fields is the perfect quarterback for us to tank for
Hey,
Arch
hey.
Manning.
There's
We're not
more
going to tank. We're
opposite
going to win
quarterbacks.
9 games.
This is the tanking opportunity. We got to take advantage of
Justin
it. Get a
Fields
real
is Zach
quarterback.
Wilson. Joel, Justin Fields is Zach Wilson for a tank job.
Zach Wilson.
Zach.
Holy shit.
How about for a hand job?
Justin Fields, have you seen his arms?
And that's going to do it for this episode.
What the hell? All right. Now, this is going to do it for this episode of the Pick a Side podcast.
That actually did it. That's fair.
You guys can follow us on Twitter at Pick a Side Pod and on Instagram and TikTok at Pick a Side Podcast. Make sure you guys follow NerdSesh
Go Knicks.
anywhere you guys can follow
Love
Go
you,
them.
Knicks,
Knicks,
Make sure you
baby.
follow
Let's go.
Carson on Twitter at Carsabi.
Why did
Really
you
love
pick
that.
that name? Like, what is that about?
I got a lot of nicknames, man, and that's one of them. So I roll with it.
Where'd you get it from? Like, what's Carson? What is it?
Well, it's pronounced Carsobi, if you were wondering. Tough to read on the handle, but
Like Ben
I don't know.
Kenobi?
No, bro. I don't know. Like I had my best friend's dad growing up used to always call me Carsini, and then that just evolved into a bunch of different things. Carcineth, Carsobi, Sobes, bunch of different variations. I got a
Can I
lot of
call you
nicknames.
Carmeaty?
You can call me anything you want, Rick.
I thought it was
Car Daddy?
because I thought it was pronounced Karsabi because you live in the Bay and there's kind of like a Korean population there.
There you go.
So maybe
and that's a very fair guess to make, Joel. It wasn't correct, but I like where your head was at.
Well, how do you
Hey,
know that?
Well,
The
Joel's
Bay?
been around.
Yeah, how do you know
Joel-
there's a lot of
Well,
Koreans?
we
in
know
the-
geography for Joel is not a strong suit. That's
I
why
watch
it'd be
a lot of
surprising.
movies, and whenever things
Oh.
take place in the Bay, you get an Asian presence there.
Hey,
We have
Carson,
incredible
the Bay,
demographic
that
diversity.
geography episode. My Lord, have mercy.
That shit is in the trash.
All right. Well, you guys can follow us anywhere you guys can follow us. Thank you for watching this episode 488. We will be back after the Knicks win Game 6.